Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternities, a live discussion on House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 4, Tumbleton. Here, of course, every week to break down House of the Dragon and joined by very knowledgeable guests. First, joining me, the Queen of Cats, my sister Alyssa. Alyssa, I know what you're going to say about this episode. You're going to say it's your favorite episode because they finally brought up cats.
Well, they brought up the cats. I think my favorite episode will be when we actually see the cats.
Sure.
Like, I want to see a scene where Rhaenyra is talking to somebody about some important stuff, and in the background you just see a rat running around, and the cat goes "Meow," and just kind of as a background. Yeah. And why did it take so long? And also, I would not put my money on Alyn as being the one to bring that up. It's like, hey, how about you get some cats and lay? Why did no one think of this? Anyways, looking forward to talking about this episode. Besides just cats, although I'm sure other things happened in this episode too.
Yeah, I think that when they do finally show the cats, they're going to use it as a metaphor, just like they use the rats as a metaphor for something. And of course, also joining as always, Darrin. Darrin, thanks so much for joining.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be back in here. Really enjoying this season. I think it's easy to say that this is the best, certainly pace-wise so far. I feel like things are happening, and I'm excited to dive into it tonight.
Yeah, I don't usually do the knock on wood thing, but so far the season has been, very good. Much more stronger and powerful than the previous seasons. But I remember back in season 2 where I was like, oh, this season's great at the first half, but then it's like hopefully this one has an ending. But anyway, they don't save the season finale until season 4. But anyway, cool. So overall thoughts on the episode? Yeah, I thought this was another strong episode. I think because it's a very normal formula for all these modern day streaming shows that do serialized storytelling, where episode 3 and 4, or maybe 4 and 5, depending on how long the season is, or the episodes that don't really push the plot forward, but they establish things, they get into character stuff more. And I think that is the case in these past 2 episodes, but they're still amazing. I gotta be honest, a lot of shows, even really good shows, like Better Call Saul, I remember doing this. They would have their, middle episodes, which would be kind of boring and kind of filler and kind of just we gotta build stuff up and establish things. But they are doing that. It's functioning like the way a mid-season should, but still interesting as fuck. It's still really good, powerful stuff. So, it's from a book reader. It's interesting seeing the different directions the show's going in, and unlike I think a lot of book readers, I'm actually really okay with it. I think I like the direction they're going in. I think it's an interesting direction they're going in. I don't care that it's different than the books. I've read before season 3 started, I watched some reviews from critics who got the first 4 episodes, so now caught up to them. And they were a couple ones I watched were whining, complaining, there's some good things this season, but they're ruining the books. They're taking weird choices. Why are they changing things? They're making it worse. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that at all. I think every change they're making is interesting, and I'm trusting that there is a reason down the line on why they're making it. So I'm still very much enjoying the episode. Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the only way that I would not like it as an adaptation is if they changed the major plot points, the major plot beats, which I think they're still going to hit on those. I am really curious to get into. I'm really interested to talk to you in the spoiler section about how we think they're going to get to some of these places because they've changed things. But I still think they're going to hit on the major plot beats. I think people who expect that any adaptation is just going to be word for word of the source material. I'm just tired of those people. Like you have to change it for a different medium. I think so far, there's been a couple changes. We talked about one last week with Corlys that I was questioning. Although I'm starting to see where that could be going now. So like, I trust that all the decisions that they're making are for a reason. And I like it so far. As for this episode, I will say I did like last week's a lot better than this one. It is kind of the episode I was expecting that we were going to get last week and we got it this week, which is more of the typical House of the Dragon episode in the past, which is just like a lot of different scenes. Oh, my dog is barking. I don't know if you hear her. I don't know why she's barking. She heard me talking about cats. Gina! But anyways, so yeah, just a bunch of different scenes of people talking about things that are going to happen and putting the chess pieces in place. And I think at the end of the season, after it's all said and done, I'm going to look back and say, what happened in episode 4 again? Oh, yeah, that's the one with like Ormund. It was the one where Daemon found Rhaenyra. Like, it's not going to be a particularly rememberable episode. But I'm not saying that's bad. Like, I think that this was a very needed episode at this point in the season. And my biggest takeaway from this, like the biggest compliment that I can give this episode is Ormond freaking Hightower and the way that they're developing this character. And this is, I keep talking about my favorite thing about the adaptation from the source material. I've mentioned this several times, the way they take this dry history text and bring it to life. This character, Ormond Hightower, I don't think he's really given any lines. He has no personality. He's just defined by the stuff he does. Like Ormond Hightower does this thing, and then he does this thing, and then he does this thing, and then he does this thing. And there's no like real personality behind the guy. And this actor, is it James Norton? Something like that. I haven't seen him before in anything, but I now want him to just be the villain in everything. Like, I think he should be the next James Bond villain. I think he should be a villain in the MCU. He's like deliciously evil. Like, I really love the performance. And I really, really loved seeing this character come to life, who is not a character of any remembrance in the book. He just does a bunch of stuff. So I'm sorry, these people who think this isn't a good adaptation are just wrong. They're just wrong. I just love the way this actor and the writing like really brings this to life. And introducing, we'll get in more into the details, but a twist not really a twist, but a plot point I didn't see coming, which is, looks like Ormond's ambitions are basically to get the throne for himself. I mean, he's gonna he wants Darrin to be king, but let's be honest, if you look at their dynamic there, Ormond would be the de facto king in that situation because he has complete control over Darrin. So it's not a plot point I necessarily saw coming, and I love it. I love how they're bringing this character to life. I mean, it was a little bit cheesy at the end where he goes, and now it begins. But I loved it. I love that ending. I mean, it's a little bit cliche, but this guy can just ham it up. That's why I love to see him as a Bond villain or something, because I'm loving him eating it up. So that was probably the standout for me for this particular episode. That's probably will be the thing that I will remember most about it when the season is said and done.
Yeah, it's funny because he is kind of like almost the Tywin Lannister of the area, as he's the one that's manipulating the young king into doing what he wants. He would be the hand. I think you're totally right on that. Yeah, this was again, for me, this was like the second episode of the season. I'm still going to plate this as episodes 1 and 2 were the end of last season, and this is a 6-episode season. And to me, this works perfectly well as that second episode. We established Rhaenyra and all of her challenges last episode, and now we're establishing our villain, who, yes, is beautifully played. It's kind of funny. Rob over in Smirking Gun and I were talking recently about character actors. And one of the things that I said is a character actor, their freedom, because they're kind of the side characters, is they get to go kind of crazy. You know, they get a lot more freedom because the focus isn't necessarily on them. So when you said that Ormund here is not really talked about in the book, it's like, okay, so this character actually has this great freedom to really find something interesting. And you are so totally right. I really want to see what's going on. This is an unpredictable character who thinks that he is smart and educated and doing things the right way. And yet there is something uncontrollable about him. I don't know. It gives a really interesting kind of spark to his motivations. And again, since Darrin is so manipulative or able to be manipulated, sorry, let me define that rightly. I think it's going to set up a really interesting dynamic there. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode overall. I think it continued a lot of what we started last episode. Rhaenyra making decisions, and some of them really ones that will come back and bite her on the butt, I think, as well as we're starting to see even the beginnings of the fallout of that. And what I actually really enjoyed was Daemon's interaction, the whole sheep stealer bit, which I know we'll get into a little bit more. To me, pacing wise, that's why this is working so well. They've established something already. They're touching on it and moving on. They're hitting on each of these individual points and driving. Even the Harranhal stuff, we got an explanation, a set of movement, and then what was happening with everybody in there and how they were moving on. It really keeps the story moving forward, while I think hitting all of the points that they need to see how I don't know. Ultimately, and I'm curious what you both think about this, and I'll end this here. What I was thinking kind of at the end of the episode is the one thing that is lacking in this, and maybe it's entirely designed this way, is I don't have a lot of sympathy for anybody. I think everybody is kind of messing up. And I'm like, I don't really find any sympathetic heroes or any sympathetic characters. I'm just watching a whole bunch of people that just are making mistake and screwing things up. And maybe that is the story of power and elite, and that's what we're hitting on here. But I found it kind of interesting that by the end of the episode, I was like, wow, kind of everybody sucks. Except Alyn. Alyn's cool, and he's right about the cats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think that watching the show, then you should read the book, because the show definitely made a lot of people more likable than they are in the source material. Like, the show has worked really hard to make certain characters, particularly Alicent and Rhaenyra, but other characters as well, like way more likable than they are in the book. And you're right, but you still come up like, everybody's screwing up. Everybody sucks.
Yeah,
but I mean,
everybody sucks. That's the bottom line here.
This is the story about the bloodiest civil war in Westerosi history, about 180 years before regular Game of Thrones. So they're telling that story. There's going to be a lot of mistakes being made, I think.
No, I mean, again, that's. While it's kind of hard to like connect with anyone because everybody sucks, I also feel that makes it the most real. Is like, wow, this really is a lot of just petty interplay that just costs, all of these people lives who really have no involvement in it at all.
Yeah, it's funny. After my dad watched the first episode of season 3 because he didn't remember the show that well because it's been 2 years, and he asked me, it's like, so who are the good guys again? Like, who are the bad guys? And I'm like, there are none. There are no good guys and bad guys. It's just a lot of people fighting each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think people generally tend to sympathize with Rhaenyra, and I kind of lean that way as well. Especially, she's a woman trying to defy the stereotypes and just defy the patriarchy and become queen. So I think a lot of people are going to lean her way, but yeah, she's she's not totally likable either. She's definitely like, we'll get into more of the details as we go into this episode. We talked about it last week too. I mean, she fucks up a lot, makes a lot of mistakes that are going to probably bite her in the ass.
Though it is interesting, I think, that most of the mistakes that she makes is when she's trying to stick with the old respected ways and not if she's trying to do something new. So I don't know. Again, she's something different. She should be different. I think that's what holds her back.
Yeah, I think she's trying to be the female version of her father. She's just trying to to be able to be more palatable to people. No, I'm just like a man. I mean, she had that line we talked about in episode 1, where she's like, "I'm just going to be a king." Like, where that's where her mistake, and it's not her fault. I mean, she's in this really patriotic society. That's where she was raised. But like, she's not trying to be the first female, leader of Westeros, the first queen. She's just trying to be a female version of her father, and a different time and different. Yeah, it's not working out for her.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and jump into the specifics. Let's start with Daemon going to the Vale. I think I was misremembering season 2. I was trying to remember what happened to Joffrey, because this season they were talking like he stayed in the Vale, but I thought I remember him going to Pentos with the other 2 kids, which would be a change from the book. So I thought I remember being like, oh, why are they changing the books and having him go with them? But then they're acting like he was still in the Vale, so maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm misremembering. It's been 2 years since I've seen it.
That was my remembrance of it too. Is that they said Joffrey, because they even had the 4 eggs that were going with them, and one for each kid, and then an extra one. I don't know what the extra one was, but I thought Joffrey was going with them. I don't know. I don't really. Yeah. And are they saying that? And I'm still a little confused on Aegon the Younger and Viserys the Younger. Are they? I thought they said they had left already, but are they still in the Vale too? Like, I'm not.
Well, didn't they mention something about that? Was it Bela was supposed to, or no, not Rhaenyra was supposed to watch and watch over them? Didn't Daemon mention something about that? So I think that they went.
Yeah, so
forward.
Daemon does say that, you should go over to Pentos where you're meant to go and be with them. So that, to me, that implies they're already there. But with Joffrey, like in an earlier episode, Rhaenyra was like, "Oh, he's my heir now, so send for him." And then in this episode, send for him from the Vale, like he was in the Vale. And then in this episode, Lady Jane was saying, "Oh, you're supposed to send me a dragon. You just sent me a pup," and even that is gone now. Even Rhaenyra sent for that. So to me, that implies that Joffrey had left the Vale to go back to King's Landing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it totally, I think, implied that. And again, even as Damon's mentioned later on, is that they seem to have gone, and she was supposed to be with them, watching over them. So I don't know. Maybe they're intentionally vague because they changed their mind, like in between writing episodes, and they're like, "Let's just keep it vague, and we'll figure it out later when we need to."
That's what I think happened. I think they're like in season 2, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna send Joffrey over to Pentos with them," and then in between season, they're like, "Oh, actually, we shouldn't have done that. Let's just pretend we didn't do that and pretend that he's still in the Vale and just act like he was in the Vale the whole time. No one's gonna notice." And I don't know.
Vale's a large place, easy to hide out there.
Yeah. So this was an interesting scene. I did like Lady Jane's sort of quip Daemon when he was like, "Oh, we sent you a dragon and you didn't send any army." She's like, "I should have sent the army of babes." Like, he sent me this tiny dragon, and I like how he was just ultimately just like, we don't even want your army anymore. We just want gold. And as my username is derived from, I like how she just kind of taunts him. I was like, "Oh, I never thought Daemon show up with a baker with pot in hand." And I like he's just like, "Well, if you give me the gold, then that will." They said that will speed my departure, my speedy departure or something. In other words, like, yeah, if you want me to get the fuck out of here, give me the money. And her response is like, "Yeah, okay, fine, here you go." Sure, if that's what's gonna happen, then yeah, get the hell out. And I like the scene with him on the dragon. Like, I was going to say this about this episode overall, is that I love the way the dragons are portrayed. I know the show does it overall, but I feel like I saw it more in this episode, that they're portrayed as more like beloved pets, almost like dogs of people, and how they're really attached to their writers. And I like the way that Caraxes is like, I like all the sounds. I think the visuals of him on the mountaintop and the way he started freaking out and like was being unsettled. And this is the first time we've actually seen Caraxes not listen to Daemon, because we've seen other dragons not listen to the writer. But he was just like, I saw a bunch of memes online about it, Daemon saying, "Oh, settle down or obey." He's like, "No, I smell another dragon." Or I smell shit. "No, I gotta take you here." And of course, I knew what was gonna happen. I was like, he's smelling sheep stiller, and that's obvious. And they take him over there, and it was a very ominous scene. And I love this. It was very different to see Daemon as a father. And if there's any failing of the show, is that they didn't really build up to this relationship between father and daughter earlier, but I still think it works. Like, you can still like just tell that he cares about her in the scene. I think the way they played that was nice. And I like how Rhaenyra brought up, like, you kind of shunned me before. You didn't care about me. You neglected me because I didn't have a dragon. But I love how he was like, really, you could see his love for her in that he was really trying to work things out. He's like, "Oh, well, just go to Pentos and forget this ever happened. Leave the dragon behind and we'll just forget this ever happened." She's like, "No, I am bonded to the dragon." You can see, like, here, sheep stealer. I love that whole way it was played. And yeah, so then he's like, when she rejected that, he's like, "Oh, well, then come back to King's Landing with us and we'll explain everything away." And she's like, "No, how could I explain what I did?" Now, so as we talked about before, how this whole Rhaenyra storylines have changed from a book. And I think that, and I like what they're doing with it. Again, a lot of people online were bitching about it, but I think it's very interesting, and I want to see where they're going. But if there's one nitpick I had, was the way she's like dismisses it as like, "No, I can't go back there after what I did. I need to go in exile." It reminded me of like Yoda at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where he's like, "Failed I have, and to exile I must go." It just seemed like a contrived thing so that the plot can happen the way that the writers want it to happen. But I mean, I get that she's like afraid of it, but I don't know. It seems like it would be more likely that she would just, and it does also seem like she's making things worse by not just confessing. And then Daemon, of course, as we'll get into later, makes up a story to cover for her. And I feel like that's just going to make things worse when Rhaenyra finds out the truth, which she will, because this is a TV show, and of course, of course, that's going to happen. So I don't know. So that part kind of got me, but overall, I did love the father and daughter scene, and I liked the way it played out, and it was cool the way Sheep Stealer like flew out. Like, again, this whole way it was shot was like absolutely amazing. And then when Daemon looks down and sees the sheep herder, he has this look. You're like, oh yeah, that guy is totally dead. Anyway, Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this was all really well done. I liked actually the parent dynamic, because you can see that Daemon actually does care for his child, and is certainly shocked because she looks so messed up. The hair's all blown up. It's like, how much of that has gotten burnt, and how much is it you have just been taken care of and tired, and I mean, she looks worn, seriously road worn. And I don't know, man. I think Matt Smith really can bring that range to the character of someone who is so hateful and murderous and conniving with his enemies, that can still be so heartfelt and connective to his family. Yes, of course, his decision is going to end up being is going to complicate things in the future. I think we can easily surmise that. But I liked his interaction. I mean, I did feel that he was concerned and trying to find an answer within the realm of his knowledge to deal with the situation. And the fact how we really do have that fear of wild dragons, that unpredictability. I have huskies, and dealing with a husky is, you don't tell a husky what to do. You open a dialogue, a set of negotiations to see if they're going to consider your request. So watching the dragons to me is very much like dealing with my huskies. It's like, yeah, you can often like steer them in a direction, but if they get something in their mind, they're just going to be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You're just going to hold on and we're going to go. So I kind of like that. And I agree with you, Mark. I love the communication and I love the different sounds. They really are good at having really different characters for the dragons, which I really enjoy. So yeah. And yeah, we all knew that sheep herder, he was gone. The minute he said hello, yeah, he was out.
Yeah, I third that I really liked the scene with Dameon and Rheana. It's nice to see the softer side of Daemon. I think we saw that in the earlier seasons, that he had that softer side for Rhaenyra. Of course, he ended up marrying her, but I mean, even before that, like, he seems to like value family a lot. So I'm not super surprised to see him behave in this way toward his daughter, because she is his flesh and blood. And he was just very kind and gentle to her. And it's just such an interesting dynamic with this character, because on the one hand, he's so kind and gentle to his daughter, and then some random sheep herder who happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, like, we're just gonna chop his head right on off. So it's such an interesting character, and Matt Smith does such an amazing job with it. And I thought he had both of his suggestions I thought were pretty reasonable. And I was thinking this through, that especially that second suggestion of like, let's go back and tell Rhaenyra the truth. I think that if, with Daemon there by her side and just like, hey, this was a mistake. She was trying to help, and it's a wild dragon. He got out of control. She didn't mean for it to happen. I think that Rhaenyra probably would have ended up treating her like similarly to how she's treating Baela now. We talked about this last week, how she's like, still has Baela working for her and like sending her off on errands, but doesn't really seem to want to see her, like doesn't want her around. I think she might treat Rhaena the same way, where she might have a hard time being around her. She might send her off to do stuff on Sheepstealer, but I don't think that she would like try to kill Rhaena if they went together and Daemon helped her explain it. Which now I think that she is going to try to kill Rhaena once she inevitably finds out that Daemon is lying, which we'll talk about that scene a little bit later. But I kind of disagree with Mark. I actually read it. I just read it as she's very self-hating, and just her guilt is just overwhelming her, that she just can't stand to look at Rhaenyra because she just feels so awful. She feels like she's directly responsible for Jace's death, which she is, and she just can't handle that guilt. And I had no problem with that at all. That seemed to make a lot of sense to me. It's funny, like the one nitpick I would have that they did just for so the episode could happen was the Caraxes, the dragons, like, just they smell another dragon and they go to it. I don't know. I thought that was a little contrived, that he just happened to take Daemon to that little cave. But I was like, okay, I guess he smells another dragon, or he smelled Rhaenyra. I don't know. Who cares? I'll roll with it. But it definitely felt like a so the show could happen sort of thing. But that I have more of a nitpick with that than the Rhaenyra thing made total sense to me. I think that is her guilt. She's like, I can't. She could never be in the same room with Rhaenyra herself because she just feels like she did this awful, awful thing. So she's like kind of taking it out on herself. She wants to beat herself up, basically. She thinks she deserves to live off in a cave and not just look like shit like she does. Like, she is doing that because she feels like that's what she deserves, and that made total sense to me.
Yeah, and real quick, I didn't mention, I did love the whole Vale discussion. I loved the whole mental or verbal sparring session that was going on there. What I was glad that didn't happen, was almost expecting, was that giant bag of gold to be spilt out everywhere when he was trying to get on top of Caraxes, and he's holding on, and then it flies down, and I was just like, man, please don't do this obvious, like, almost pratfallish type thing of like, oh, trying to get the gold and then you lose it. So I'm glad they didn't, but I was worried they were going to. Also, and I know there's been some commentary on the internet, and I have to say I felt it also while watching this scene, is that this was a low budget CGI shot. They did a lot, but there was some obvious matting and everything going on in that scene where he's putting the gold on top of Caraxes. I will certainly counter that with the fact is there were a lot of dragon shots in this episode. And if to get all of those, we had to have a slightly lower quality matte job done on Daemon getting on top of his dragon and playing with a bag of gold, I'm okay with that.
I didn't even notice that.
I didn't hear any complaints about it. I thought it was beautiful. Like, I love that shot. I thought it was really good. Maybe I was just more paying attention to like the sounds that the dragon was making and the behavior and the way that Daemon was sort of interacting. I don't know. Maybe I was too focused on that to notice any matting or whatever. I thought it was a great shot.
Yeah, well, if they've got you engaged with it, then yeah, it certainly doesn't matter. I had to top that because I thought it a little bit and I saw some commentary on it, but again, there was so much that was being done. And that shot of Sheep Stealer behind Rhaenyra and the fire going and then him coming out, that was all just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with Caraxes finding Sheep Stealer, and the main reason is because I was worried that we'd be spending like half the episode of Daemon looking for Sheep Stealer or something like that. So when they had Caraxes sniffing around, I'm like, great, he's just going to find them right away, and we're not going to waste time on this bullshit.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm good with it, too. I was willing to just roll with it. I was, for a moment, like, really? Would he really do that? But it's like, no, it's fine. I want this to happen, so I'm totally fine with it. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's move over to, in my notes I have Rumble and Tumbleton. So I want to talk about like the sort of first half of the Tumbleton stuff, all the stuff with up until Ormund like orders that guy, one of his soldiers, to be gilded. We'll get into his temper tantrum and the way he reacts to Darrin a bit later. But it was interesting. So I don't know if you had the time to watch the behind the scenes thing, like the dragon that was it the house that Dragon built because they built like a huge like town for Tumbleton, and in fact the set they said was even bigger than King's Landing. So they're going far, hard out on it, and that also tells you that we're going to be seeing it quite a bit. They're not going to spend all that time building a whole town. And I thought it looked beautiful, and I liked the reaction of, there's enemy soldiers taking over. They said they wanted to have like a sort of, Nazi Germany going into France kind of occupation feel to it. And I think they did that very well. And then they had the lord and lady of the town, and how Ormund was just like doing a power move, just standing in front of them naked and bullshit. In fact, like I was worried when the lady was like, well, Rhaenyra is the true queen. I was like, oh shit, they're gonna cut her head off. So at least it showed that he wasn't like that kind of person, that he did have sort of restraint in that regard. But I like how he was just like, is she, or is she just a bitch with a dragon? And then we learned a bit more about what he feels about, how he feels about dragons later on. And then of course we get Kat, Hugh's wife, and it's kind of obvious to me that they were going to focus on her because she's a known character, and it was also obvious as soon as that soldier came up that he's gonna try to sexually assault her, and he did, and I was actually worried that he would get away with this. So I'm glad that the show didn't go in that direction, and that there was a huge ruckus, and then Ormund actually kind of listens to them, which was surprising, because I thought it shows the kind of person he is. However, they give you a false impression, like, oh, this is a good guy, but then later in the episode at the end they're like, oh no, maybe not so good. But it's, and some people are comparing it to the previous episode with Gwaine Hightower, and how he saw a guy violating a woman and told Cole to execute him. So, and this so Ormund doesn't go as far as that execute him, but he does threaten it. He's like, you can remain in my army, but I mean, he's having him castrated and his arm broken, so he's still punishing him, and he does like believe them. And also, like, I heard some other people make a good point about how this has to do with guest rights, because he said you violated guest rights, and if from Game of Thrones we know, like in Westeros, guest rights is like a very sort of important unspoken law, and that's why everyone was like hated the phrase and were against it. Even like people on his side hated him for doing the red wedding, because he violated guest rights and everyone was waiting for him to get his dessert. So he mentioned that, like, the guest rights, so that kind of makes sense as more about appearances, and even the accusation of it, regardless of whether or not he thought was true, was like, you can't have his soldiers violate guest rights because he wants to have the appearance of, a good, just army, which is kind of interesting, because in public he was like, let that guy go, but then in private is when he's like, he touched a high tower. And also you kind of get Darrin's sort of, you get a feel for his being kind of subservient to Ormund and kind of at Ormund's mercy. So I thought this was all like really, really good stuff, that this actor totally carried these scenes. But Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I know. I kind of read it. I know we're not talking about the end yet, but once that context was given, what he does at the end, I kind of read his treatment of the soldier as just, he enjoys having power over people. So it's just like, I have power over this guy, so I'm going to castrate him because it makes me feel powerful. but also I'm also going to kill this other guy too because it makes me feel powerful. I just feel like I don't know, he's a power freak, and he's basically trying to install himself as king. So that makes total sense. So that's kind of how I read that scene. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's not what I expected at all. But then at the end, I was like, okay, that's good. It kind of makes a lot more sense for this guy. And also, I want to point out, because I didn't know this until I watched somebody else's YouTube video, but that guy is Kat's brother. That she moved Kat, Hugh's wife. That's his brother that she moved to Tumbleton to. Or moved to Tumbleton with. I didn't actually catch that, but
oh yeah, I did notice in the episode when they were soldiers were attacking him. She's like, "Get off my brother!" So that's
okay. I must have missed that line. Yeah, so that's her brother that gets killed. So it's interesting how, I mean, you talk about, what he does in public versus private, but Kat's gonna find out her brother is dead, or she's at least gonna, like, he's gonna be missing, and she's at the very least gonna suspect something if she doesn't outright know that he was killed by Ormund. So that's going to be interesting, because we see later that Hugh is going there, and I would imagine they're going to have some interaction. So I'm really curious to see, what the blowback may be to Ormund for doing this. But yeah, what a very interesting character. I'm really looking forward to getting into the second half of his storyline, because that's when it gets really, really interesting for him. Now, as for Tumbleton, yeah, I love that I think it looks fantastic. I did not see the behind the scenes thing where they talk about, like, they built this whole town or whatever, but I could see that. Like, it just feels very grounded, and like you're in a real place, and I can really feel it. I do have a minor quip about naming this episode Tumbleton, because I feel like a lot of other things happen in this episode outside of Tumbleton. And knowing where we're headed from the source material, no spoilers, but like I feel like there's probably some future episodes that would be better off being titled Tumbleton, because more things are going to happen in Tumbleton, probably in future episodes, than do happen in this episode, because we have so much outside of Tumbleton happening in this episode as well. So I did have like a minor gripe about the title of the episode, but yeah, not too much. I overall, I really love the feel of this town, and I'm really getting into Ormund as a character.
Yeah, it's interesting. They kind of mentioned throughout the episode and other sections how kind of connected the Hightowers are to the church. And it's really interesting how in this we really see that kind of manifested, especially later on when we do see his sort of viewpoint of what dragons are. But yeah, to me, this was a great depiction of a town taken over. For one thing, you always have to have a rapist. Why do they always have to have a rapist? There's always got to be a rapist. The minute you know that this guy's going to be held in Ulf's wife's place, or Ulf's wife's brother's place,
Hughes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like the minute he's introduced, it's like, oh, there's going to be a raping. Why do they always have to have a rapist? I guess it's an easy shorthand to be like, this is a horrible person. And it's also, unfortunately, probably accurate to things that would happen, because how are you supposed to stand against this army, this invading king? And I think that was a nice thing that they did with Ormund believing them and, punishing this soldier for violating house rights. But it's great, because I think what they do throughout this is really setting up Ormund, like I had mentioned before, as he wants to be perceived as the educated, righteous one. He's doing the right things. He has studied. He has followed the stuff. This is the law. This is the way. This is an example of the way things are supposed to be. So yes, we must be strong. We must be just. We must be serious. And I think it's reflected really nicely with how he is kind of relaying these lessons to Darrin throughout the episode. Every time he does something, he tries to explain why he does. And I think it gives him a sympathetic Vale. And I say that because obviously at the end, he reveals that, like any politician, all he was doing is finding the image to present to the people, while he is going to use whatever methods within that in order to do what it is that he wants anyway. So I really love him as this particular character. It makes him dangerous. It makes him a little unpredictable because you don't know what bit of knowledge or bit of things. Again, he's educated enough that he has a lot of options to him. But I think ultimately his undoing will be like anybody else's. He has a quest for power, and that's ultimately what's going to undo him.
Yeah, I'm also wondering about we saw the first time we saw him, like, his doing the sniffy thing, and like we saw that a lot more. And Alicent tells Rhaenyra in another scene, I'm sure we'll talk about his obsession with smells, and like I feel like that might end up having something to do with his like they put that line in there. I feel like that might come back in some way. I saw one video where it had a joke where the dragon is gonna Rhaenyra's gonna have dragons fly over with barrels of Axe body spray and just spray it all over the town, and that's how they're gonna get Ormond. But I don't think it'll be that particularly. But I think that's gonna come into play.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of stink, and apparently that is Ormond's stated weakness.
All right. So let's move over to King's Landing and talk about Grand Maester Orwyle. And a lot of people or book readers were bringing up that this is a change from the book as well, that Rhaenyra keeps him on the council. But I think that makes sense for a show, because you have a character who's known, not just going to have him locked in the dungeon for a couple seasons. I mean, you have him be around. It makes sense, and she needs more people on her small council. And it's interesting that he is like giving like pretty good advice too, because she doesn't know what to do about it. And she realizes that if she just goes down and with her dragons and burns Ormond and everyone, then it would be a terrible situation for her, that people would start to lose faith and she would lose support. And I think she realizes that's what he's trying to do. That's what his aim is. And so, Orwyle suggests, send the army of river folk. And then, of course, you get Maester saying, "Oh, let's appoint Master of Coin, so we can blame him for all the problems," and shit like that. But yeah. And then she gets to Orwyle later, asking about trying to get information on Ormond, but he doesn't really have any. And then she also asks him about the Septon. And I like, this is a follow-up from the last episode, so it does seem like that this is leading somewhere, that this is going to make it a difference. And I love how, she's like, "Can I have him removed?" And he's like, "Well, no, the people of faith wouldn't stand for that unless you're thinking of some permanent removal." And I like she's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were so bloodthirsty." But no, that's kind of what me and Darrin were talking about last week, about just kill them and then kill the next one.
That's what I thought about when you two from
yeah. But I do think, I've heard some people doubt why would she really trust Orwyle, but I think she was keeping him on a leash. And I think so far, like, he is proving, like, I think he's being honest when he says, like, I just went along with them because I didn't want to die. Like, they were there. And that he feels more loyal to Rhaenyra. I think that is true to a degree, or at the very least, like, he's loyal to her now because she's in charge. That he doesn't have any kind of hidden agenda. I think that he genuinely does want to help her. It's interesting that. So I think he is giving her good advice. But anyway, Darren, we'll start with you about Orwyle.
No, I really like that Orwyle is being brought onto the council, and I think you're right. I think she doesn't entirely trust him, but he has not been dishonest with her at any point. I think he's been very straightforward, and I think she realizes that she needs help. And so far, Orwyle seems like, at the very least, kind of what we had mentioned about with oh God, I keep wanting to say Viserys, but the wrong one. His interest seems to be more of the realm. We want to take care of doing what's right. He is in his position offering. He doesn't have that same sense of loyalty, it seems, which is not necessarily a bad thing in this. And I like the fact that Rhaenyra is recognizing that he doesn't seem to be working against her and does have its usefulness, but maybe is not entirely trustworthy yet. I think it gives a good direction for this interaction to go. And I think it's interesting to see where Orwyle eventually will lay himself out. It feels very much like he's much more in her corner than in the previous administration, shall we say. But to me, it's much more of he's doing his job. And she's the one that's charged, so he's the one that she's going to be working for. Again, he's one of those guys that just goes from administration to administration. If we were going to look in today's type of world, people would call them the deep state, but they really are just the standard government worker. And I think he's just one of those guys that's just, I'm holding my position and doing the right thing because I think this is the right thing to do. And as long as those line up with what Rhaenyra wants, I think it's going to work very well. I think it's going to be interesting if we run into something that's going to violate what Orwell's personal belief systems are. And I think that if there's going to be a conflict, I think it's going to come out of something like that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention one of the most important scenes in the episode when Orwyle reaches for the ball and Rhaenyra is just like, no, that's the relics of the past. We don't do that anymore. He just like chucks it down. I was like, all right. So a lot of people are like,
no balls in Game of Thrones because Rhaenyra was with them.
I love that bit so much. It was such a tiny little scene. I'm so glad you brought that up because the fact that he didn't set it down, he like tossed it away like, oh, thank God. Oh, this is stupid. We can finally move on with this dumb thing. It really, that little move just said so much. And I loved it. I was like, man, I like Orwyle right here. He seems like he just wants to like move on with things.
I'm just wondering why she even has the balls there. I guess she's going to have them removed.
So they can have that scene.
Yeah, of course.
Well, she doesn't really have a small... I mean, she doesn't really have anybody to take them away, I guess. So she'll get around to it. She's got other more important issues to deal with than getting rid of the balls. She'll get around to it.
I think also because everybody else hasn't been in the small council before, right? So nobody thought to grab the balls that have just been sitting in the middle of the table. I think he's the only one that's like, oh, so this is what we do, right? So, I think it might be something more along those lines of like, nobody else even thought to pick up a stupid ball.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Anyways, I went into... I guess similar to what Darren was talking about. I feel like that Orwyle is just a job to him. It's like, well, looks like I have a new boss now. Okay, whatever. Just still in the same job, just different boss now, and I'll just go along with this new boss. Like I don't know that he I don't see anything that tells me that he prefers Rhaenyra to Aegon necessarily. Maybe he does, but I think at the end of the day, it's A, it's his job, and B, it's his life. Like he's going to go along with whoever's in charge because, he cares about his life. And ultimately, I don't know. I mean, I think he just wants whoever's in charge to be successful. Like he wants like you said, Darren, it's like Varys and the realm. I still remember that scene from Game of Thrones when Ned Stark asks him what he cares about. He's like, the realm. I feel like that's where Orwyle is also at. And he's going to genuinely want to help Rhaenyra because he wants her to succeed. He wants the realm to succeed. So I believe he's sincere. And I agree with Mark on the choice to keep him on the small council. They need people on here. And Mark, you also brought up, what's his first name? What's Manderley's first name in this show?
Oh, I don't remember.
Tyron. It's Tyron. I don't know.
Tyron Manderley.
That's the Lannister.
Yeah.
In the chat, I'm sure. So yeah, Mr.
Dan
Manderley,
Fogler.
Yeah. Manderley there. Another change in the book is he is mentioned in the book, but he is not the Master of Coin. The Master of Coin in the book is actually one of those grumpy old dudes that Rhaenyra rightfully left behind in Dragonstone. Torrin. I knew Brandon would know. Torrin Manderley as Master of Coin, because I'm so glad she left those crotchety old dudes behind, because those guys annoyed the crap out of me for the end of season 1 and into season 2. Like, I'm so one of those dudes in the book is Master of Coin, but they brought in Manderley, and it's a much more interesting character. I really like this actor in this character. So curious to see. He seems like a pretty smart guy, so I kind of think he's going to catch on to the fact that he's being used as the scapegoat, and really curious to see how this. I feel like this is another thing that could end up biting Rhaenyra in the ass again, but very curious to see where they're going to be taking that storyline. And Mark, I assume we're going to have a separate discussion about Alyn and Corlys, so I won't.
Yes, we will. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little, yeah. So the small council is getting a little bit less small. We're getting a couple more people on there, and she randomly has a new Queensguard dude. I'm not sure where that guy came from, but he's like there now.
I mean, I guess it just assumed that Daemon found him. I don't know where from, but
yeah, he's just kind of just there now, which is fine. Like, they don't need to do a whole backstory about him.
Yeah,
totally fine. Maybe a line about where he came from would have been.
Yes, that wouldn't have hurt. Yeah,
it wouldn't have hurt anything, but it's totally fine. I'm finding the King's Landing scenes to just be really interesting, and like really can't wait to see where they're headed with this.
Yeah, like Brandon in the chat was saying, or play marbles, so they could use those balls and just play marbles.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when season 1 happened, there was a lot of people like, "What are these balls? Like, what?" Because not only is it not in Game of Thrones, but it's not mentioned in the books anyway.
Yeah, no.
So people are like, what? So now we see the origin of the balls being gone. We're seeing the cats come in and the balls going away. Like, things are starting to fall into place.
Yeah. Well, you realize like why they introduced the balls at the end of season 1 when Criston Cole killed that dude by slamming him to. I was like, oh, that's why the balls.
Yeah, I think that's the whole reason to kill Beesbury with the balls. Yeah.
And now they did that. They don't need the balls anymore.
Yeah, Rhaenyra's like, no weapons sitting around the table here to be used to smash people in the face with.
I'm maybe a slight bit disappointed that they haven't mentioned any of the Beesberries in the show, because in the book, like, Beesberries like want revenge for killing their grandfather or whatever he was, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, they still could bring it up.
Yeah, they could still bring them up later.
All right. So let's move over to Alicent and Helaena, which is, it's. We didn't see them all that much this episode, but I like how they sort of touching on them. I like how Rhaenyra kind of is going to Alicent for like advice, and that's actually what I predicted would happen this season, because this does not at all happen in the show. In the show, I mean, in the books. Sorry, in the books, they talk about how Alicent's like in change. It's like, oh, you'll never be queen, like this evil whatever. But like even before the season started, I was like, yeah, no, they're gonna have them have this relationship where she's gonna go to her for advice, and I kind of like how in this case she's asking all these questions about Ormund, and I think Alicent's being totally honest, like she just doesn't know much. Didn't really have any interacting with her. And I think what's interesting is that like Rhaenyra asks, like, did it pain you to send him away? And she's like, no, not really. Like, I kind of wanted him to be raised away from all this. And we talked about this, like Gwaine talked about this a bit in the previous season about how Darren's like a much nicer kind of son because he wasn't raised in King's Landing with all the conniving and the political bullshit. But that makes the ending of this episode a lot more interesting as well, because we find out that maybe that's actually not the best thing to send him to be raised by Ormond. Like maybe he's not the best person to raise your son, and Alicent's just not aware of it. So I find that very interesting. And yet, and Alyssa, you already brought up the whole thing about the smells and how Alicent mentioned like, oh, he has a sensitivity to smelling. So as soon as she mentioned that, I'm like, so this is not just a character quirk. This is going to have repercussions. Like something's going to happen in the show later on. Like she wouldn't mention it. She wouldn't outright say, oh, that's, as this thing. I feel like that's a Chekhov's gun. Like it is going to, whether it be Axe body spray or whatever. I was thinking like the dragons, they could just she could have the dragons like show up and just fart all over this town to try to get him to leave. But somehow I think it's definitely going to come up. And then of course later we get the revelation that Helaena is pregnant, which I'm going to have a lot more to say about this in the spoiler section. It is the change from the books, so I'm still not quite sure where they're going for it, but I like the terror on Alicent. Like she realizes like the implications, like what this means, especially because she could be carrying a male heir to Aegon, and even though Aegon, they know that he's actually not dead, he's sterile. He can't have any more kids. So the fact that he actually does have an heir, that makes it very dangerous to Rhaenyra, and so that puts Helaena in direct harm. And so that's a very interesting avenue. It'll be interesting to see where they take it. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a change from the books, but they're also going along with making all of the kids younger. I think that Ryan Condal said for some reason they're like, oh, we're trying to squeeze 30 years into 20 years, so all the kids are younger. So like Joffrey is younger, Aegon and Viserys, Rhaenyra's kids, are younger than they are in the books. And in the book, Helaena had a youngest son named Maelor, who I guess is so young that he hasn't been born yet. So they've made him so young that he's like negative years old. And it did take away an aspect of the blood and cheese scene that I think a lot of the book readers, like I including myself, kind of missed, which was that blood or cheese, which one of them was like, because there were two boys there, and they made Helaena choose, and she chose her youngest son, who doesn't exist in the show, and then cheese or blood said, "You hear that, boy? She wants you dead," and then kills the other one. So they end up killing the same son that they do in the show.
Yeah, George R. R. Martin complained about that.
Yeah, George R. R. Martin needs to just shut up and work on Winds of Winter.
Yeah, I know.
It does not. But it's interesting now. They seem to be bringing Malar into the show as an unborn child now, and I don't know. Like I think that Alicent seems to be generally like you see this look of concern on both of their faces. Like, yeah, the implications of that are not good for them. So I don't know if this child is even going to be born in the show because they're either they're gonna have to try to escape, or I don't know what's gonna happen, honestly, with that. So it's a very this is another change though. I find this interesting. This is adding drama to it. This is adding something to it. Because as you said, Mark, Alicent has been, Rhaenyra has been going to Alicent for advice and they've been playing nice, but now there's like some real stakes here for Alicent. Like, holy shit, like Rhaenyra is not going to take kindly to another heir, yet another heir of the throne who could possibly have a better claim than she does. So this is not good for them. So yeah, I find that very interesting. And then I don't really have much to add as far as the rest of the scenes with Alicent and Rhaenyra. I think, yeah, I do find that dynamic interesting, but I'm more interested in like what's going to happen now with this revelation. Like, yeah, I think we're going to see Alicent still trying to play nice to Rhaenyra, but she's going to be plotting something. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, that last thought where we had the reaction, and I loved how underplayed that was as well. That was just a reaching for the stomach, a reaction back, and like immediately as an audience member, I was like, oh no. And then we got to see it on Alicent's face that she also understood what this meant, but nobody had to be very explicit in its statement like, oh my God, you are pregnant. This is going to complicate things so much. Just
that would be Zack Snyder's House of the Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. That would have all been in slow motion, though. Would have been like slow motion, hand to the stomach. Yeah. So I do love how that again changes things, and I'm gonna underline again, knock on wood, how much this works well at propelling this story forward. We are not, I felt like last season this would have languished for like 2 or 3 episodes before we kind of got that reveal, and I love that this is already looking as this forward complication. And yes, Alicent's gonna now have to figure, do I have to figure a way to get Helaena out of here so she's not noticed? How long until she is seen? What's the time, what's the tick of the clock that we have to deal with? And I kind of like them adding that one. I think it propels the story forward in a much needed pace. Also, because just prior to this, I was feeling a little bit of this, I'm getting tired of these Alicent and Rhaenyra scenes. Because, like you said, it does feel like this is one of those, she's going to be going for advice and doing this thing. And, Alicent gets to say what it was like to actually, trying to run the realm and make these decisions and have that bonding thing. Because I know the mechanic that so much of this storyline is really going to center around their dynamic, and when they're together and when they're apart and when they're working and in kind of the same ways and when they're working against each other. But I was getting a little bored with that. So at least this makes it more interesting, as I'm hoping there's going to add a little bit more dynamic and energy, because otherwise just I've got a question, I guess I'll go up to the tower and ask Alicent what she thinks about it. To me, it had already wore out its welcome. So the fact that we did have that final reveal with Helaena is now adding an extra element that has to be negotiated around. And I appreciate the fact that changes things, and hopefully thus we won't be repeating these scenes over and over again. We'll have something new going on.
All right. Let's move over to Criston Cole arriving in Harranhal. Which I like Alys Rivers. Their whole thing. She's kind of like fucking with them. And they were like, being all serious, like, where's the Castellan? And it's like, oh no, he's dead. Where's his heir? Well, he's dead too. And before you ask, his heir is also dead. And they were like, being all serious, like, where's Aemon? You gotta tell us. And she's like, oh well, he fucked off. Not going off of any book knowledge, because they're making a lot of changes from the books, and not going off of any sort of trailers or anything. Just from watching this scene, I got the impression that she's full of shit, that Aemon is in fact still there, like healing, because we saw him got near death. And so I do get the sense that she's kind of fucking with them in a sense and sort of exerting power. I like how when she brought up Rhaenyra taking King's Landing, she just casually mentioned it, and you're like, what? Rhaenyra did what now? And she's like, oh my, you didn't know. I got a strong sense that she's like fucking with them and exerting power. So it's going to be interesting to see what she does going forward. And then the scene with Gwaine and Cole afterwards was also interesting, where Gwaine wanted to go to Tumbleton to help Ormund, which, as we'll see later, is what Ormund wanted to. But Cole's like, no, we're just gonna chill out here and we're gonna attack the river folk. And they're like, oh, they outnumber us 10-1. I love Cole's response. He's like, no, 20-1. It's even worse than you think. But he's sort of suggesting like guerrilla tactics, which is interesting. It's also something that didn't happen in the book, so I'm curious to see where that's going to play out. But then this gets into, we see Criston Cole start to be more of himself again and not such an emo whiner, because he is so traumatized by dragons. He seems more like alive now. It's like, now it's just going to be, men against men. We're not going to have to worry about these beasts or dragons. I don't give a shit that we're outnumbered 20-1. This is like the way it should be. So yeah, and so that's interesting. So I doubt that we're going to be treated to 5 episodes worth of Aemon having visions and tripping out in Harranhal. So I think we're gonna be seeing something more interesting. But anyway, Darren, we'll start with you on this.
Well, there's only 4 episodes left, so that's going to prove it's probably not going to be at least 5 episodes of that happening. And it's interesting actually that you said that you thought that he was going to stick around Harranhal and just hit them from the back. I didn't get that at all. I didn't necessarily say stick around Harranhal. Okay.
They're going to go out, but they're going to use guerrilla tactics. They're not going to just directly attack an army that's 20 times larger than them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Okay. So I stand corrected then, because I was like, that is what I thought, is they were heading out and they're going to do these kind of guerrilla. It's funny when I think of like, a rebel alliance, tactics against the Empire. We're just going to go and hit the little back ends in their supply lines and do stuff. We're doing asymmetrical warfare against them. Which I do kind of appreciate. I totally agree with the Alys Rivers. She is totally messing with them. And I love how she still sets herself up as like, I'm just kind of a steward here, just keeping an eye on things. And I like, because to me, what I felt really the best about this was them showing up to Harranhal going, oh, well, Aemon's not here. We seems to have sign of a dragon nest, but no dragon around. It seems to have taken off. So I guess we move on. Which, again, still makes me think Alys Rivers should have killed Aemon, sent his head onward. She would have been the head of Harranhal and could have messed with these people here. Though I know that that's not the way that things are going to go. I do like Alys, though, in this really claiming Harranhal. this is her place, and all of you are just passing through. And that's what I really appreciated in this whole scene. Also, I don't know, very minimal Christian Cole, moved on, and I'm always fine with that. I do like the fact that I did notice also, he was like, we're going to stay under cover and under the trees. We're going to hit the back so we don't have to deal with any dragons. And it's just going to be men versus men. It really kind of sets up an interesting, again, differential between what Hugh wants versus what the High Tower wants and everything else. But mostly I'm curious what we're going to see next with Alys Rivers and how she's dealing with Aemon, because I love her kind of claiming Harranhal in these scenes.
Yeah, I really love Alys Rivers in the show. I think this actress really plays her up. On the trailer from last week, they kind of cut it so that it made it look like Criston Cole and everyone was like, "Where is Aemon?" And she goes, "Oh my!" like that was her response to it, and like just made me think of George Takei. Like she's just like, "Oh my." So that kind of cracked me up, but it's even better like in context, which is like, "Oh my, you didn't hear about it, did you?" Like she knew perfectly well they didn't hear about it. She's just really fucking with them, and yeah, she's definitely fucking with them. I mean, the one obvious omission from her story was the fact that Aemon got mortally injured. Like she didn't tell them about that, so obviously she's hiding that. Aemon is. We know he's not dead, but he's like probably still healing, I would imagine. My question is where Vhagar is. We know that I think her story was Aemon went off to go chase after Rhaenyra or something, but that's not what he did. And they mentioned like, oh, we saw evidence of a dragon nest with no dragon. So I'm my biggest curiosity from all of this is where Vhagar is, unless she has some sort of witchcraft where she can make them like Jedi mind trick into not seeing Vhagar when he's right there or something. I don't know where Vhagar is. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Where Vhagar might be? If Aemon presumably is still healing, where's Vhagar?
Yeah, I don't know. Like he could just be wandering around the Riverlands, or maybe Alys had some spell to get him to fuck off. I don't know.
Yeah, because I just can't imagine Aemon would be healthy enough yet to ride him.
No.
And since that she didn't mention that, I don't think that is. She didn't mention to them that Aemon was hurt, so I don't think that's what's happening. I'm just really curious where Vhagar is. So that was my like head scratcher for this, but I guess we'll find out at some point.
Well, if we look for the kind of Chekhov's gun, she did kind of seem to instantaneously travel to where Hugh and Ulf and Alyn were waiting in ambush for Aaron in the beginning episode. So I'm wondering if she has, I don't know, a portal spell, an ability to travel large distance that she could take Daemon to, and thus, or Aemon to, and thus his dragon would follow. And so it could be some distance away where he is healing. Is it actually in Harranhal?
Oh, you just gave me this idea, because Alys Rivers, I think it's never confirmed, but it's talked about that she could be like hundreds of years old. So maybe she's still alive in Game of Thrones times, and she gives her teleportation powers to Littlefinger. That's how the mystery of how. By the end of the show, it wasn't just Littlefinger; it was like everybody. Like, oh, we're at the wall now. We're going to in 5 minutes.
Actually, what they don't know is a Mandalorian ship crashed and everybody got jetpacks afterwards. So that's how they were able to move so quickly.
Yeah, but if Alys Rivers was still around and she has this teleportation power, then that explains everything. She was just off screen.
Yeah, or it's, there's portals. She knows like little stargates in between areas, little shortcuts, in between the
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, she's definitely playing them, and I'm curious to see where Vhagar is. And I'd like to see Aemon back. You know, he's a total douche, but I like the actor. I like to see him on screen, kind of like Ormond. Ormond is a horrible person, but I really like seeing him on screen. I'd like to see Aemon back. So hopefully that's next episode. But yeah, I don't have anything to say about Criston Cole. Fuck him. I'm glad we're getting such minimal Criston Cole time this year. And I love it. I'm all here for. That's why season 3 is the best season. is a minimal Criston Cole.
You know, I was thinking that during the episode as well. So I am right along there with you.
So, in the chat, Stress Free K was saying the Witch of Harranhal is probably one of the Children of the Forest and turns both Aemon and Sunfire into White Walkers. I've been hearing theories like that, and some people are like theorizing that Aemon's going to be some sort of monster creature. I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's anything like that going on, and for the love of God, we don't need another fucking like White Walker dragon. Like that that was bullshit in Game of Thrones. They're not gonna do that again here. They better not.
We never had Lady Stoneheart, what Catelyn Stark turned into after she was killed. They don't seem to go in that far direction on magic in this show, so I would be doubtful on that.
All right. So let's move back to King's Landing and talk about Corlys and Alyn, which is very interesting. That I don't know if this is too early for me to say, and I think this is different than the book, but I would make the judgment call that Corlys is a pretty shitty hand of the queen, that he doesn't really do much. And last episode is like, I leave that to the queen's discretion. Like, give your fucking advice, and here he didn't even show up. Although he's pretty justified in being mad at her. But I like how it's interesting how he's going off to attack the raiders or whatever, and leaves Alyn. It's like, look, I may not be able to legitimize you, but I can give you like this experience. And I like that Rhaenyra at least receives Alyn well. Because she could have been like, oh, you're just a nobody, but she does seem to truly value him. It's just that for political reasons, she's like didn't want to legitimize them at this moment because her situation is tenable, which I think there's some merit to it, but I think, and I've heard some people argue more that she did the right thing, but I think it was still not a good idea to piss Corlys off. That doing that was probably just a dumber thing to do. But it is, as we been talking about throughout, we finally get Alyn mention the cats, because when they were bringing up the rats and they showed more rats, I'm like, okay, enough with the rats, enough with the rats again. And I did kind of wonder, because they always talk about Aegon had all the rat catchers killed, and I'm like, can't other people become rat catchers, or would it take them too long? I'm like, surely people are looking for jobs.
Nobody to train them though. Like, who's going to be a rat catcher? It's a lost art now. They're all
Sure, there's be rat catchers from other towns. Bring them in and train people to be rat catchers. But anyway, that's fine, because we need cats. We need the cats to the show, and I want to be able to see the cats show. And as I said, I think they're going to use that for like symbolism about the cats eating the rats or whatever. But I think the reason why they delayed it so long is because I think they had in mind that they wanted Alyn to be the one to suggest it. I think the reason for having Alyn be the one to suggest it is to kind of ingratiate himself to the queen, just as Corlys was suggesting, because he comes up with a good idea. And and she's gonna think, oh, this is a smart man, and she's gonna rely on him more. So it's setting up an interesting dynamic, and I do think that they purposely left it there so they could do that eventually. And I do find it more interesting than it just being auto doing it, so that in making it relevant to the plot. But I better see the goddamn cats. That's all I'm saying. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said last week, I think they delayed it so that they could have the symbolism of the rats running around when Rhaenyra took over. I think that's the main reason they delayed it, but also maybe for Alyn's story as well. I can't remember if I said this in our spoiler-free or spoiler section, and I can say this without spoilers, but because I did suggest that it's going to be like the last scene of the entire show, that they'll have a character just like it looks like it's all over, it's all wrapping up, and some character will say, and another thing, let's bring in some fucking cats in here for God's sakes, and then that's the end of the show. The very last scene, they're going to bring in the cats. But yeah, I do kind of maybe see where we might be headed with if Rhaenyra may eventually legitimize Alyn because she will see the value in him, because he's going to prove himself to be really valuable. The cats is just the start of it. But I think that he's going to continue to be valuable to her, and maybe eventually she will like go, okay, you can be a Valyrian. And so, and I had a half thought that maybe Corlys did that intentionally to maybe try to get Rhaenyra to trust him, and then maybe she would change her mind later. But I don't know. I think he's too pissed to think about stuff like that. I think, and I do like that they went the direction of Corlys still technically works for her, but he just wants to piss off, and like he doesn't want to be around her. So he's not like betray. I thought that he was going to maybe even try to go to the Greens and betray her, but he's not doing that. He's still in league with her, but he's like, yeah, I don't want to be around her anymore. I'm going to go fight these pirates instead, which makes total sense. So I guess she doesn't really have a hand of the queen right now, because I don't think Alyn is the hand of the queen. I mean, I don't know what he is, like what his role is on the small council. He's the substitute hand of the queen, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't have the little thingy, the little symbol. So I don't know what he is, and she doesn't really have a hand of the queen. But I agree with whoever it was it Mark that said that Corlys is a pretty shitty hand of the queen anyways, so, which is disappointing. As I recall, I think he's a little better at it in the book, but he's a pretty shitty hand of the queen. She needs a better one. And almost, I mean, Massaria has kind of been acting as sort of the de facto hand of the queen, even though she doesn't have that title. She's the one that gives the most advice. She's the one that Rhaenyra listens to the most. So she's kind of the hand of the queen, though she's not officially. So I don't know what Alyn is just there, but but he will, I think, prove himself worthy to Rhaenyra. The cats is only the beginning, so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a special pin for acting hand of the king. You know, if it's like the hand thing, but it's got little quotes next to it. You know, like it's not really that way. No, I don't know. I completely agree that he's Corlys, not necessarily the best. The fact that he is leaving to go deal with other things, I think you're right. It's a way of like, look, I'm not betraying you. I just need to work some of the stuff out. And by killing a bunch of enemies, that's going to make me feel better for the moment. It's interesting because in some ways, while I disagree with not legitimizing Corlys's sons, it is set up real interesting in the episode as that is the anti-Rhaenyra graffiti we see is Queen of Bastards, which would have been further supported had she elevated and legitimized these sons. You know, it's one thing to just accuse her children of being that. It's another thing is if the first thing that she does as queen is to legitimize bastards. I think that would oddly support the point that the high towers are high tower aligned people are using to attack her. That being said, I love that it's offset by the fact that Alyn goes to basically, what is it, that Corlys asks him to stand in his place as acting hand or whatever, and we never see any scene where she accepts that. We just see the scene later on after they have their interaction that he is there in the small council. So in a way, that's a nice little shorthand to show that she accepted him. But even the scene that we have between the two of them, where they get to have that personal interaction of, yeah, dads are kind of like that, aren't they? They teach us when, they act this way, and then they do this, and this is how we respond. That while she felt, even though while she was legitimate, while she felt not necessarily as, as the proper heir, that she was separated from her father, she can identify, I think, the way that Alyn has this breach between him and his father right there. And I think it allows that connection. And to me, it's interesting because it really underlines the fact that I mentioned before, when she is striving to do the right thing by tradition, that's where she tends to make her mistakes. When she is making the decisions as being a person of empathy, coming from an understanding, a connective place, I think when she does her best stuff, the fact that she's thinking like, hey, we got to feed our people. We got to stop the people that are hoarding food and we have to pass it on. That was going on last episode. In this, the fact that if she can accept that connection between her and Alyn, I think what we start to see through the episode is that Alyn is taking that place, will be that suggestion, and can, much like Corlys had wanted to happen, this can be the education that in the Queen's mind, this will give Alyn value, and thus he can almost legitimize himself. This is not something that's happened just because Corlys wants it, even though that's reason enough in many ways. It's because Alyn is also an individual that deserves to be raised up, the same way that Adam deserves to be raised up in a way. She just really needs to see that value. And I like that feels like the direction that they're going on. So I find it an interesting dichotomy is while she's paying for her kind of bad decisions, she's also laying the groundwork to really see like, this is how you could actually make a difference and do something better. Which, sadly, I think we all know is never going to work. But that's why the show is.
Yeah. All right. So let's move over to Aegon going to Rook's Rest, which is, interesting scene with him sort of touching, Sunfire and saying, oh no, he's alive. And everyone else is like, no, he's dead. And it always seems like Larys and Aegon are constant peril, which, and I do like how that guy was like, threatening, like getting ready to kill them, and Larys kind of picked up on that as like, it's probably not that good with the gods just to kill a man of God just for a couple pennies. And Aegon's like completely oblivious to the danger he's in, and he starts speaking High Valyrian to his dragon, and so he's kind of being a bit obvious about who he is. It's probably lucky that the guys there are probably dim-witted and don't really get it. And then there's the whole thing about once they get to the castle, they have to beg for their position, and Aegon has to carry shit and piss around, and it was beneath him. And he eventually gets to a point where he's like, just totally forgets. This is another thing that it shows just how, I don't know if it's fair to say dumb, but I think dumb he is and doesn't realize the situation that he's in. And Larys keeps trying to be like, no, my lord, you have to like do these things. But he's like raised as, in royalty, as in spoiled. And so he just like loses his shit and almost gets killed. And he has to kiss the shitty boot because of this. This seems like I don't know. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but it seems like a typical Game of Thrones storyline where these characters, things just keep getting worse and worse and worse for them, and they have to find out how the other half lives and do terrible things to survive. So it felt kind of in place, and it's an interesting place to take this character as well. Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm gonna just go ahead and agree with both Future Boy OG and Stress Free K in the chat. Future Boy OG, I feel sympathy for Aegon and Sunfire. What is the show doing to me? Whereas Stress Free K is thinking an Aegon redemption arc. And yeah, I kind of feel that. And to me, that would be the most interesting thing. I love the idea of a character being taken completely down and building back up. And we had mentioned before, it's like Aegon's inability to bend the knee almost gets him killed if it wasn't for Larys. And then he kind of gets a second chance. And then we really see throughout this whole episode of his little personal arc, the fact that he's got to learn some humility, that he is not the king anymore, that if he is going to survive, he needs to learn to change his ways. And in some ways, he could learn to be a better king this way. He could learn the way that people's lives actually are. I mean, same way that Rhaenyra seems to be really concerned about the people of her city, Aegon could also learn how people are and the suffering. He could learn that connection, and thus, if he ever does get the chance to possibly be raised up and to make a different change, he can see the world in a different way. I am a sucker for a redemption arc, if it's done properly. And if it's not, and people get their just desserts because they don't do it right, I'm also always fine with that. But I find it real interesting that in many ways, Aegon has the biggest opportunity right here because he is dead. He can build himself back up. And to me, that would be a real interesting judge of his character and why he is, like you said, he's useless. He's worse than useless in so many ways. But I would love the opportunity for that to be changed. I'm a sucker for that kind of arc, and if that's the way that they're going to play this, I'm kind of excited with that. But I guess it all depends on how they're going to end up playing it out. But yeah, I would go for this journey a little bit more. He's not dead yet, so there's hope.
Yeah, I had really, really conflicted feelings of the scene with Aegon kissing that shitty boot. Because on the one hand, like, he fucking deserves that. Because he's been a dick this whole thing. He's been the worst. He's been kind of the worst. I on one hand, I was like, yeah, kiss the shitty boot. But also, that guy, also the worst. So I was not a huge fan of that guy either. So yeah, we're either gonna see a redemption arc, or we're gonna see Aegon take his vengeance on that guy later if he gets his power back. So yeah, that guy sucks as well. But yeah, I kind of feel it like whoever said it earlier, what's the show doing to me? Like, making me feel sympathy for Aegon and Sunfire, because I thought that scene was kind of sad. Like, it's somebody with their poor puppy who's dead. I'm like, oh, my poor puppy. Like, it was a little sad. I did have some sympathy for him in that scene, and I think I saw another video or read an article or something who referred to Aegon as like he has the world's worst survival instincts. Like he just doesn't know what he needs to do to survive, and he's sitting there speaking high Valyrian to this dragon. And I think you're right, Mark, that I don't think those guys like know what it was, but still, it's not smart to be doing that out in public. Yeah, he's gonna get himself killed. Like if not for Larys, like he would just be dead by now, like 5 times over. I'm still like, as I always have been since the beginning, like still never know what Larys is really, what his end game ever is. I mean, right now he's just trying to survive, but beyond that, is he legitimately want Aegon to be back on the throne? Because he did put Otto in the prison and left him as a gift for Daemon. So I mean, right now I think it's very clear he's just trying to survive and he's trying to keep Aegon alive with him. But like, if they were to get to, I think he said they wanted to go to Bravos. Like, what is Larys? I know what he said he wants, but what does he want? Because Larys is just somebody you just never trust. But yeah, I'm like, as we've mentioned before, this is not in the book. Aegon just disappears. So I'm just like really, this is all new stuff. So I'm really, really interested in this. And then I think we mentioned before too that I like that we just get a little bit of them in each episode. Last episode we didn't get any of them, but the first 2, and then this one just a little bit. I think that's about where my tastes are for this storyline. But yeah, it's just really interesting how they were able to get me to like feel some compassion for Aegon in this episode.
Yeah, I think we got a bit more of them in this episode.
I think a little more than we had in the previous.
Yeah, and bringing up that scene with him, crying over his sunfire, like that was an emotional scene. I did feel really sad for him, and this is why I'm saying this. I feel like this episode did a really good job of getting you showing like the relationship between the dragon and the rider, and how it's a deep relationship. As a pet owner, is something I can very much relate to. So yeah, I think this episode did a good job at that.
Well, I think it also shows Aegon as kind of like he's like a child. In many ways, he was brought up and raised and pushed up. He's got the arrogance of a child who has gotten all of this power and expected position, but ultimately he misses his pet. He misses the one connection that he seemed to actually really have. And I think that gives us a great it humanizes him for us. And it gets us to root for him. And also the fact that he gets treated so badly by, you're right, somebody who completely deserves to get whatever comeuppance is going to eventually come his way. And if we want to know one thing about this show, that guy's getting a comeuppance.
All right, so let us talk about Ulf and Hugh, and it's interesting. You're starting to see the contrast between them and the way that Rhaenyra treats them. I like how when Hugh went to see Rhaenyra, she was like, "I haven't had time to get your house yet, but don't worry. I'll get you when it's ready." He's like, "No, it's not about that. Like, I hear that you're sending Ulf over to Tumbleton. You should send me instead." And that she actually like listens to him and takes his into account. It's like, you're right, because he's like, "I will never rest. I'll be more diligent because that's my wife in there." And I think she was worried about him like losing perspective, and so that was interesting that she was willing to give that to them. But Ulf, on the other hand, you see him like drinking, and it's funny. It's like where he's like, "Oh," I think he's like quietly, "Oh, I'll give everyone drinks." And like, "You hear that? Drinks for everyone." And the waitress is like, "Okay, where's the money?" You can see how reluctant he was to give that money. So he's acting richer than he actually is. And it was a funny scene where he went to Rhaenyra begging for, like, asking for these favors, and it was like, "Oh, I'm so grateful you're coming." He's like buttering her up, and like she could tell, she's like, "Yeah, what is it? Like, get on with it." And she didn't actually answer him, so I'm assuming that she did not do what he asked. She was just like, "You're in taverns? Oh, no. You're not going to be doing that anymore." And he was just like, "Oh, she's like, what if someone stabbed you in the belly?" It's like, "Oh, well, it's my belly." She's like, "No, it's not. It belongs to the queen, because if you die in some tavern, then I lose a dragon, and that will affect the entire realm." And it's really interesting that he is like, has this little comeback and trying to be all like humble, but you can tell how pissed off he was. And he's like, "Well, just so you know, there are people doing graffiti out saying Queen of Bastards. So it doesn't seem like, people don't think you're as kind as you really are." Kind of trying to be like, hey, it seemed like a really like passive aggressive way to be like, you should be more kind to me. And I think it's interesting that I think that she is not treating Ulf the best. I think that I don't know if it's just because she does. I mean, she is a bit dismissive with Hugh, but she did like listen to him because he's more like, he knows like the command and how to be respectful for royalty, and Ulf is just a goofball. And so, but I do feel like she feels like, even though she had, them, it's convenient for her to have more dragons, I still feel like she thinks they're beneath her, beneath the loyals for being bastards. And I think Ulf in particular, since he's such a like an obvious aloof, she has like no respect for it, and is just like ground him like, "You're not allowed to read." It's practically making him a prisoner when he is like vital to her. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like she's really being that smart in the way she treats him. And then we see her make another mistake, because she immediately tells the gold cloaks, when she hears about the Queen of the Bastards graffiti, to go out and find who's doing it. And of course they're going to be brutal, like they're Daemon's gold cloaks. They go out and they're gonna beat the shit out of it, random people who may have nothing to do with it, and force them to clean off the walls, which is gonna make things worse. Like, it's gonna make things worse. It's gonna make people even more pissed off at her than having. So that was like an overreaction, because you can tell how sensitive she was to that particular topic. And by the way, I didn't notice this, but some other videos pointed it out, is that with the graffiti there was like the 3 different colors, like stripes of colors, and apparently that's the house sigil of House Strong. So specifically speaking to her sons. So yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was like, "Oh, but this guy, he was such a nice guy in the second episode." And I'm like, "Oh, right, yeah, he was trained by Daemon. Like, Daemon was the one who brought him into the gold cloaks." Like, yeah, that is exactly how Daemon did that in the very first or second episode of the whole series, where he, I think it was the first episode, where he's going around just torturing people. So yeah, that's how he was trained. And let's not forget, they haven't been paid yet either. So, and still not going to be paid, apparently. Like, she's going to take Daemon's gold and give it to the poor again. And I want to agree with you on another point, Mark, and I think I brought this up last week too, is that Rhaenyra does look down on Ulf and Hugh as just being lowborn and being bastards. I think Daemon definitely does. He shows it more, but I think Rhaenyra does too. I mean, Rhaenyra can go out and give out food to the poor to make herself look good. Kind of the Marjorie Tyrell kind of phenomenon there, like to because it looks good for her. but she still, even if she doesn't consciously realize it, she still looks down on them. And you can just see that with every interaction that she has with Ulf. And I think you're right too, that Hugh shows a little bit more respect. So she talks to him a little bit differently because he knows how to speak with her in a respectful way, where Ulf just talks to her like she's, somebody else at the bar. He has no idea. But yeah, she just looks down on him, and that's not sitting well with Ulf. And yeah, he was absolutely being passive aggressive, and I kind of like that comeback for him. And yeah, you mentioned, Mark, she didn't really answer him. I took it as a no. I took her response as a no. Like, she didn't say no, but taverns, you shouldn't be in taverns. Like, that's not like, I'm gonna go give your buddies beer money. I don't think that she was agreeing to that. Yeah. So yeah, she's Ulf is souring on her more and more and more, and he's got a dragon, so you gotta be careful about that. So but I don't think Rhaenyra can help it. Like, I just think she just naturally looks down on the lowborn. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think we have basically what here is a perfect example of institutional racism. I mean, classism. Because yes, no matter what they have to offer, they are lower born. And I think that's the biggest mistake that Rhaenyra is running into. It's one of the things her Mistress of Whispers is trying to help her reconnect in with, but ultimately it has to be her empathy and her connection and her consideration of other people as more along the level of equals. That's going to be her real challenge, and ultimately probably her undoing. And I mean, she's Targaryen. You're right. Daemon is kind of the perfect example of that viewpoint. And I think as much as she tries to resist, she is trained that way. Hugh gets away with it because he understands a little bit more of negotiating that realm. He can present himself more in the expected presentation of what a knight is supposed to be, and therefore he can get a little bit more leeway. Ulf, on the other hand, is, I mean, he's a beer drinking tavern guy. That's where he comes from. That's his comfortable place. And if Rhaenyra was smart, she could see the value in having somebody that can wander through that area and get feedback. I mean, the fact that, even though I completely agree, this is totally passive aggressive and kind of a total jab back at her. But the feedback that apparently nobody else has given her at this point, that there's graffiti saying Queen of Bastards, that is something that someone of Ulf's position could be. There is a value in that if you respect it. And Rhaenyra doesn't see what the value of that is. And I think that's going to be, again, that's another one of her big complications. And I think is definitely setting her up against Ulf. Though Ulf, on the other hand, is also, sort of taking care of his friends here. Is, hey, I got some buddies and they need some stuff and a little bit of forgiveness. And again, it's like, dude, it's not like you can't ask for that, but there's a way, there's a time, there's stuff that you could do, and you don't understand how to actually negotiate that, So in some ways, it's almost like a language issue. Do you speak high class? Do you speak royalty? Do you know how to approach things in this? Do you know how to write an essay? Can you put it in separate, each 3-paragraph examples with an opener and closer? There is a certain structure that highly educated people, and we could even look back on our Hightower then friend there, wants to think that he's all right and proper and we're educated and we're doing things the right way. That's almost an extreme version of that here. But Ulf does need to learn, like, there's a proper way that you go about this. And if you don't, because Rhaenyra does have a point. You're a knight. You're a representative of the crown. Kind of like Ormund says, he touched a part of the high tower. That's a kind of a screwed up kind of thing and just an excuse in order to get his nephew to kill a guy to kind of be more under his realm. But in this sense, Rhaenyra is kind of right, as you are a representative of the crown. You could be captured. You could be ransomed. Your impact because you fly a dragon is huge. You have a different set of responsibilities. You can't just go wandering around the streets where you could leave yourself valuable, or vulnerable, So yeah, she has a point. On the other hand, he has a value that she needs to recognize. And I think her inability to recognize is going to be problematic. One, obviously, he gets to dig back with her about the Queen of the Bastards. But like you had said, Mark, even her response to that is not compassion or understanding or recognition of the people out there, even if it's just a few voices. She just sends the gold cloaks out. Just deal with it. I don't care how it's done. I mean, dismissive. She doesn't need them brought in front of her. But that then gives the gold cloaks all of the power to go in and just make a big mess in the name of the queen. And that's only going to turn people against her because they're not exactly surgical. We don't even know if they caught who was behind it. They just chose some guy, it seemed like. And that does not end well, man. That does not make the people like you.
Yeah, in the chat, Stress-Free K was saying, I think it was actually pretty disrespectful for Ulf to even ask for all that crap. I don't know if I'd say disrespectful to ask, but it was definitely the way he asked was disrespectful. I mean, trying to butter her up first didn't really help. I actually think that he would have been better served if he went to someone else and not the queen. Like maybe Maester or someone like that, because she's a bit more sympathetic to the lower folk. But to go directly to the queen, I think, yeah. Like she has bigger things to worry about.
True, but there's also the complication is I think this would be something at the very least you would go to the hand for and not her first. But Corlys is gone. Alyn's another, I mean, like
he could have went to Alyn too. That's another option. He seems to be the acting hand.
True. Well, yeah. I mean, Ulf is just, again, this is his problem.
Yeah. It's just, it's true to his character, though, because it shows that he doesn't really know how to function in this kind of setting. Like, Hugh seems to at least be aware of it.
Yeah, no, Ulf is completely, he's like, basically, he's the pretender that he can play in front of a tavern of big speak and what you're supposed to do, but he has actually no idea what real court interplay is like.
Yeah. Stress-Free says Alyn is a helping hand. Anyway, let's go ahead and move over to Dameon returning with the head of sheep stealers rider, which is this. Yeah, so this is interesting because they were talking about money and how they're arguing over it. And I actually thought Alyn was being kind of helpful in this council, probably more so than Corlys is. And we meet Manderley and see him in his role for the first time, and how he's like, did anyone not think to tax someone? And they kind of just ignore him because like, yeah, you're just here to be a fall guy. But I don't know. I think that maybe he will like prove his worth as well. They could take this character in several ways. They could make him like be a thorn in the side or actually be spiteful to her, or I think they might make him be like actually helpful to her and they realize that he's worth more than they thought. But anyway, so Dameon shows up and they're still talking about the gold and what should we do with the gold, to give it to the gold cloaks or give it to the poor people, and they're arguing over this. And they do that like weird sound effect that they did in the previous episode of the show, like how like disorientated and upset Rhaenyra is that was like really well the way they did. She's just like, yeah, everyone get the fuck out. I need to talk about this. Like, what the hell? You know, I wanted to see that. I wanted the answers. I wanted to know this. And Daemon, of course, we know he's lying. He's just like, oh yeah, well, I like his response though. It was a lot more like wise or tactful, where he was like, you know, it wouldn't have made you feel better if you killed him yourself. Like, it wouldn't have made the difference. It wouldn't have made Jace's death any easier, which he's right about. So that I thought was very interesting, but she was still just upset or taken aback about the fact that, and it was just jarring too for him to walk in like, okay, here's the skull, the sheep's still a guy anyway, what should we do with this gold? like she was just like, what? And so that was very interesting. Was also very interesting, I found very interesting, that might be setting up for something interesting later, is Mysteria going up to Daemon being like, okay, so whose head is that? Like, she could see through his bullshit like immediately, and so that's going to be interesting. How that's going to play out too, and also that Rhaenyra sided with Mysteria again and chose to give the gold to the small folk, which again is like, there's no easy answers for this, and not giving it to the gold cloaks. Oh God, yeah, when they need them so much. It's hard but on the other hand, she's also aggravating the small folk by going out and having gold cloaks beat up random people. so I don't know. There's no like right or easy answers in this situation, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, if I didn't know that Daemon was lying, I would know that Daemon was lying. Like, I wouldn't buy that. I think that I'm not totally surprised that Rhaenyra did buy it, because it's what she wanted to see, even if she preferred to have done it herself. And yeah, like you said, they kind of showed the scene where, you know, people are talking and she's getting that stress noise again, that she's freaking out. So I can kind of see how she would buy it. I definitely would not expect Mysteria to buy that for a second. I mean, he doesn't really give a great explanation. You're like, who is this? You know, this is some guy. You know, this is this guy. Don't think too much about it. Like, if he started asking about, wait, but only certain, you have to have Targaryen blood to ride dragons. Like, how did he have the blood? Who is he? Like, but he was able to sort of like kind of redirect her. I was like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, it's some dude. You know, it's fine. But I don't know. The way he presented it just seemed like he was full of shit. I mean, of course, I'm watching this. I know he's full of shit, but I feel like that I would know he was full of shit if I didn't know. Because I feel like he's very, very sketchy about the whole thing. And I would be disappointed in Mysteria if she didn't call bullshit immediately, which she did. And this is another thing that we've talked about, things that are going to bite Rhaenyra in the ass. I think that this is going to probably bite Daemon in the ass. And as we spoke earlier, he has good intentions. He really is looking out for his daughter. I sincerely thought that his suggestion of them going together and just like, let's just explain what happened to Rhaenyra, I really do think that would have worked, at least to spare Rhaenyra's life. But now this is going to make things so much worse. Like, once Rhaenyra finds out, and she will, this is going to be so much worse for Rhaena, and it's not going to be great for Daemon either. After he did all that work in the last season, tripping balls for 5 episodes to get finally in a place where he's back in her good graces and he's on her side, that is going to all fall apart when she finds out what really happened. And I think that she will. I think Mysteria is probably going to do some digging and try to find out what really happened, and she'll find out, and then Daemon is going to be kind of in trouble there. So Yeah, it's just a lot of people do. I think it's kind of what Darren was talking about at the beginning. A lot of people making mistakes, people doing things that are going to come back and bite them, and that's what I think. While it comes from a good place, it comes from a place of protecting his daughter. I don't think it's going to prove to be the wisest decision for Daemon.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did underline very much last episode with Mysaria. She's very good at sniffing out a lie. And I think they continued that on very well. You're right. That's definitely going to be a point of contention between her and Daemon, because she knows he's not telling the truth. And look, Rhaenyra's weakness is Daemon in many ways. You know, she will fall for his explanation. She will defer to him in many ways. And I think he actually does have a real legitimate point. What did you want to get out of this? What was going to help? What was going to change things? You know, was you killing this person going to bring your son back? Is that what's actually going to make you feel better? I think in many ways, dealing with it and moving on is probably the best thing for Rhaenyra, because there is nothing that she can get out of Rhaena if she ended up coming there. I mean, I think you're right, Alyssa. I think that would be a lot better closure if that choice was taken. I think there could be an explanation for this being, this was a wild dragon. I was trying to bring the dragon to you, and there was a battle. The dragon got pulled in. Even Bella can actually say, hey, she was trying to pull away and Jace saved. You know, I mean, there could be an explanation where, yes, this was a tragic turn of events. But neither Rhaena nor Sheepstealer actually killed Jace. Okay, Jace was killed by people on ships that were able to spear the dragon and bring him down and then do that. Yes, because Sheepstealer was involved, that sort of led to it. But again, this was not anything that was done. So you're right. I think because Rhaenyra sort of has that weakness to Daemon, I think you're right. I think facing her while bringing a dragon and telling the truth, she would be angry and she would be upset and there might be some drama, but I think it could move forward. However, the situation being what it is, and Daemon wanting to take care of his daughter in the only way that he possibly can, I think he made the right choice. And I think his explanation to Rhaenyra is the best, in fact, the truth, even if it kind of covers things up. Because I don't think there was anything that could have happened that would have made Rhaenyra feel better. And if Sheepstealer just stays away, then this is all taken care of. Obviously, that's not what's going to happen because this is a television show and we need more drama. But I think that's kind of, in a way, a fair gamble, at least for right now for Daemon. It'll, very least, it buys him time. So I think that was a good choice. And that might even end up being a smoothing point between him and Mysaria. But, of course, they're going to make that drama be a little bit bigger, too. So I don't know. I feel for Daemon what he said. I'm just waiting for our Master of Coin, who actually seems like he's trying to do a right job, get totally screwed over. And I love the small interplay there when Daemon came to the table like, and who are you? That was just awesome.
So I definitely see what you were saying earlier, Alyssa, about Rhaena and how she was too riddled with guilt and couldn't confront Rhaenyra. I think that's definitely, there are a lot of in-universe reasons for things playing out the way they did. But I still can't help but feel like, particularly like Daemon continuing with this lie and being like, oh, here's the head of the random person. I feel like this is a very typical, like, almost like Shakespearean Much Ado About Nothing or like sitcom trope of if they would have just told the truth, things wouldn't be that bad. But then lying, they're going to make things much worse in the future.
Well, to be fair to Dameon, he did suggest just telling the truth, and Rhaenyra declined him. So that was actually his that was a choice before what he did do. So to be fair to him, but then he was like, well, she's not going to tell the truth. I guess I'll just kill this random person and lie about it.
Yeah, but I think the show is like indicating that was a wrong move, and this is going to come back and bite them in the ass. Especially with Mysaria being like, "Oh, so whose head is that?"
Yeah, just to call off the sheep guy who just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. He's just, unfortunately, that's the kind of Daemon thing is, again, he's not really a person. He's just like one of those sheep guys, one of the lower folk. And so, yeah, he gets easily knocked off for Daemon.
All right, so let's finally get to Ormund's temper tantrum. This I love this scene. I love the way it played out, and yeah, I feel like these last couple scenes with Ormund, it like really shows you just how fucking despicable he is. Like you kind of think he's an asshole and he's all preppy and has to have his odors and shit like that. And I don't know. I think a lot of people like myself are kind of instinctually like anti-green or less trusting of the green side of things. But Darrin's seemed like a nice boy though. But anyway, yeah, so it's a very interesting scene where he gets the raven from Harranhal. It's like, oh, here's a raven from Harranhal. He reads it. And it really shows you just how used Darrin is to Ormund losing his temper. That he knows him well enough to know that he's about, just by seeing the reaction on his face after reading that, knows him well enough to know, like, oh, he's about to lose his shit. And then he tells the other serving boy, like, get out. And he's just looking at him and says, no, really, seriously, get out. And I think, like, Darrin was saying that more for his benefit because he didn't want the boy to get the shit beat out of him because he knew like that Ormund was going to lose his temper. And I've heard some people comparing it to like Kylo Ren losing his shit and like destroying the scenes and stuff like that. And the other dude, I can't remember his name, Lord what's his nut, but the dude that serves him, like you could tell he was used to it too. He was just standing there all normal. And then once he was done, put his chair back. But you could tell like that Darrin was still like flinching. Like he was still like affected by it and scared of him in this sense.
I believe his name is Lord Guy, who was in Star Wars Andor.
Oh yes, Lord Guy who's on Star Wars. That's right. But so that was very interesting. And then again, this is what I'm saying. Throughout the episode, we get like the importance of the dragon and the writers, and we see the connection that Darrin and the dragon have. And again, it's like you seeing someone pet their puppy or their beloved dog and how loyal they are. I think the show in particular is like even better in Game of Thrones, I think, has made like that connection and making the dragons like lovable little weapons of mass destruction. But and it's interesting seeing Ormund's like, oh, I told you not to make a connection with. I told you not to do that, and Darren's like, yes, you did tell me, but it's obvious he doesn't care. Like he has that connection, but we see that Ormund is actually racist. Like he's just racist against non-Andals. He's an Andal supremacist, which is interesting because this is something Night of the Seven Kingdoms touched on a bit, and you see, and Alyssa, you mentioned this earlier, that you find out that he's kind of got a plot to put his figurehead on the throne so he can gain power. And that it's like, oh yeah, your brothers are lost because they were raised Targaryens, but it's purposely, it's like, I've raised you as a high tower, so you're really a high tower. But really, you can see how much control Ormund has over him. And yeah, he has that guy killed, even though he's like, I can let you go, but when no one else is looking. And you mentioned, Alyssa, that of course Cat and other people, his family, are going to know that he's missing or dead, but he just didn't do it like in a public square, like where everyone can see. He gilded that guy in public in front of everyone, but this one did in secret, like hid him and be like, Darrin, you're gonna. And you can tell that Darrin really didn't want to kill him, but was scared of Ormund. I love the way that the dragon, by the way, was like when Ormund got too close to Darrin, the dragon would start freaking out, and as you could tell that dragon did not like Ormund, and he was chained, which was another interesting detail. But the dragon still, burned the guy after Darrin killed him and ate the corpse, and you could tell like he looked all evil. And the dragon fire watching this. So, this is I agree a lot with what you were saying earlier, Alyssa, about this being a really, really good villain. Like, and he's different than Otto. In fact, a lot of people were pointing out that, and Orwyle mentioned earlier in the episode that Otto sent him a bunch of ravens, but Ormund never responded to him. And some people were pointing out that Ormund kind of didn't like Otto or what he was doing in King's Landing. He didn't like how he was purposely, implanted his daughter to marry a Targaryen to try to seize power, because he's very racist towards Targaryens. And so that he and Otto actually didn't get along, and he just seizing this opportunity, even though he despises Targaryens, like, well, at least that has the Westeros will recognize them, so we can sneak in our high tower, because we'll do it with this boy who was raised as a high tower, not raised as a Targaryen. So yeah, it makes it a very interesting dynamic. Darrin, we'll start with you on this one.
I mean, they very much portray Ormund, and I think that's the great thing about getting this letter and his kind of big reaction is the fact that he portrays himself as one thing, but he is really something else. He tries to be righteous and forthright and doing the right things, but he is ultimately still scheming and have his racist inclinations of what he wants to do. I love the fact that even though the dragon is all chained up and he obviously despises the creature and doesn't want it around and is against Darrin's connection to it, he's still terrified of that dragon. The minute that dragon moves, he steps back. He is, again, it's like he's trying to put forward this front of like, we are better, we are superior, we are, don't come near me. It's it just shows where his weakness is. Really into that is that he has this belief of where he is forward. And I completely buy the fact that he would be separated from Otto, because he definitely seems like he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And the only reason he's dealing with this Targaryen is because he has been raised high tower. He doesn't even have the white hair anymore, because of course he dyed it in order to do that exchange. But I think while that kind of like him in a surface way works to his effect, I think also shows his real purpose is the fact that he wants to erase the Targaryens as much as possible. And Darrin is just simply his effect to do that. So yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's a great. I always love these kind of reveals for people that pretend to be one way and end up showing the other. He is a just person. However, he is also extremely petty. Yes, of course I tortured that person because he raped and violated. But in fighting back, he attacked the High Tower name and the High Tower extended persona, and therefore he must be punished. Again, that's not highborn. That's not reasoning. You're just finding an excuse to do what it is that you want. And what is that? To manipulate this kid into killing for you, because that will bring him closer to you and be more of a weapon that Ormund needs in order to gain further power. So no, I think he would be very happy for ultimately Darrin to die during this battle, and that for Ormund himself to step in to rule. I think that would be his ultimate place. If not, he'll be the hand and the power behind the throne.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have to at least start that way. He could always end up like doing a Cersei and somehow ending up on the throne. Like, how does she get to be queen? But but I think his intention now is to install Darrin on the throne, and he would be the hand of the king or whatever. But clearly, he would be the one calling the shots. He wants that power for himself, and it's interesting. We did hear last season from Gawain that Darrin is actually a good kid, and I'm starting to think that he is that way because Ormund intentionally raised him to be docile, to be submissive to him, so that he could control and manipulate him, because that is what he's doing. Even though Darrin he saves that kid, he knows what Ormund is about to do. It seems like he has a conscience, but in the end, though he does question it, he does say, "What about mercy? Shouldn't we show mercy? Isn't mercy a virtue?" In the end, he does what Ormund wants. He kills that innocent guy who did nothing but defend his sister from being raped. And at the end, and it just shows the power that Ormund has over Darrin, and he has raised him that way. I did find it really interesting that I think you brought it up earlier, Mark, that Darrin knows that Ormund is about to freak out, because me just watching it, I didn't know that Ormund, just reading that paper, he was just like, "Oh, I'm reading the paper," that he was about to just have a total freak out. But there were some kind of signals that Darrin picked up on that he knew to get that kid out of there. Like, he could see it coming. So he knows that Ormund has this within him, and yet he still follows him, and he still ends up doing what he says and kills this innocent man. So I think this is quite intentional. I don't know that Ormund, I don't know if he always really planned to install Darrin on the throne. I don't know what his plan would have been for that when Aegon was king, but I do know that he has been, probably since Darrin has been there, he has been manipulating him to control him so he can have control over this person who potentially is in line for the throne at some point. So very, very evil guy. And also we haven't mentioned yet, but I did learn recently that the kid who plays Darrin is playing Link in the new Zelda movie that's coming out. So that's why the people who knew the casting information were like, "Oh, that other kid's fake," because the guy who's playing Link is playing Darrin. So if you're geeky enough to pay attention to all of that stuff, then people were just automatically spoiled on the fact that the other Darrin was fake. So one day we'll go back and we'll watch the Zelda movie and be like, "Hey, it's Darrin from I don't know if that's a movie I'll ever actually watch." but
he looks like he could be an acceptable
yeah.
Link. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to throw that in there. But I kind of talked about the ending thing already at the beginning of this video, that I absolutely love it. I just love. I mean, I would think that it would be cheesy the way he goes, like, "And now it begins," but he had to just work so well for me. It was just like, oh, it was just so good.
Yeah, I feel like he had that guy killed not just to test Darren, but also I feel like it's part of his racism. He's like a high tower supremacist. Is like, oh, this random guy who's not one of us touched a high tower soldier, so how dare he? It doesn't matter the reason. It's into part of his flat out racism, and that's an interesting dynamic. It makes him different than Otto, but again, he seems like a lot more despicable than Otto, but just as good at scheming, which is interesting because it's go ahead. I was just gonna say after his temper tantrum, he was like, oh, we're gonna have to change our tactics. So it seems like he has another scheme in mind that now that he knows that Aemon's not going to show up.
Well, yeah, and as we had gotten before, the fact that he never responded to his father and seemed to, I think they even made the comment is that he was treating Old Town as if his own personal kingdom. That he is not one that is, he's been scheming and planning this for a long time, even if it's his, the outside bet is that this one kid would be able to do it. If that opportunity came, he was going to take advantage of that. And he definitely seems to be one of those that believes in his own superiority, and therefore everyone else is beneath him.
Oh, yeah. And I also wanted to add to another thing that I think the show is doing really well. There's another change that they've made that I really am enjoying is we've set up this dynamic now where we have 3 different sons of Alicent who are now vying for the throne. I mean, Aegon is in a pretty low place. He's kissing shit boots, but he's still, the king by their definition. He still has a claim to the throne. Aemond, we'll see how he's doing, where he is, but he still is going to want the throne for himself. And now we see Darrin is in play. So to have all 3 of those, you have Rhaenyra, but who is Rhaenyra going to lose the throne to if she loses it to anyone? There's 3 possibilities, potentially a 4th one now, and Helena's possibly newborn son. So it's I love this dynamic the show is setting up. Will Rhaenyra defeat her enemy, but which one? There's 3 different possible people who are coming after Rhaenyra.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to point out is I feel it's interesting that Darrin is scared of Ormund, even though he has this big dragon. He's still kind of, you can tell that he's scared of him to an extent, even though Ormund was scared of the dragon. But and
that's intentional on Ormond's part. I mean, he has raised him that way to be scared.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that might be Darren's ability to step up is to eventually defeat Ormund in a way, because he's scared of him because that's how he's been raised to be, and it's going to take something else for him to be able to step into his own.
All right, well, I think that about wraps up this particular episode, or at least the spoiler-free section. So thank you so much for everyone who joined. If you have not read the books, you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time to bow out. So we're going to have to say goodbye to Darrin. Darrin, thanks so much for joining, as always.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate always being here talking about House of the Dragon, especially this season. I know there's a lot of complaints last season, but I do enjoy the pacing going on. There's a lot more interesting stuff that is happening, so I really enjoy this. So thanks both of you for having me as always, and enjoy everyone. The spoiler section where these 2 are going to delve into much more interesting stuff that I know nothing about. So I'm not going to be very helpful to that. So I will see you all next week. Bye.
All right, Darrin. See you later. All right. So now spoiler section begins. Alyssa, was there anything particular you wanted to talk?
Yes, I'm sitting there while Darrin is talking and people in the chat were talking. There will be no redemption arc for Aegon. There's also, Sunfire is not dead. I did see some people like online like thinking that he is dead, although I can't believe they're changing the book. No, they're not going to change that part. First of all, Joffrey has already said it. But secondly, they really heavily foreshadowed it by having Aegon be like, he's not dead. I can feel it.
Yep.
And then later, I saw what they did there. Later on, they have Larys use the word resurrection. I believe he invented that to mean, Aegon, you'll have a resurrection and it'll be powerful. But I think that was intentional to put that word out there, resurrection, because I saw somewhere online where somebody mentioned, well, if Sunfire was dead, why is his corpse not rotting? Why is it still like? And you still like what was what's
Meraxes?
Yeah, Meraxes. Like that, the corpse looks like it's like rotting and and. I mean, Sunfire looks like he's asleep to me. He's just been asleep he's taking a really long nap. But I do this is what I said about as long as the show hits the major beats, they're fine. And I think that this is a beat that they're going to hit. I think Sunfire is very much still going to be alive. I think they foreshadowed that heavily. And I think that I also think that Rhaenyra is not going to be the first person that Sunfire eats. I think the first person Sunfire eats is going to be the guy who made Aegon kiss his boots.
100%. I actually kept expecting it to happen in this episode, but I think it's going to happen next episode or the one after, where that guy's going to threaten Aegon's life and they're going to turn around and see Sunfire.
Well, I don't know. It depends on how long they want to wait before they bring Sunfire back, and it might wait more toward the end of the season. I don't know.
Could be,
but it will happen eventually. It is going to happen where that dude is Sunfire fodder. Like that guy is so being eaten by Sunfire.
I mean, it's kind of a mini sort of redemption arc, because the audience is kind of going to be, yeah, totally, that guy. They're going to be all cheering when Sunfire eats him.
Yeah, but then what Aegon does
after that, well, it's like what we were saying before, that there's no like good guys in this show.
Yeah, and although I did I stand by the fact that I'm glad Rhaenyra left those stupid dudes behind at Dragonstone because they were annoying. I think they're all going to be full on like welcoming Aegon to.
Yes.
Like in the
book, I was actually just thinking that. Yeah.
In the book, it's just that one dude.
Arthur Broom.
It was just him. But I think that all of them are going to be like, "Come on, my king, we're all that bitch." Like I think they're all going to just welcome him with open arms to Dragonstone at this point.
Yeah.
So maybe in some respect it wasn't smart for her to just leave them, but also fuck those dudes.
So I'm kind of thinking, because like throughout these episodes, Larys is like, "Oh, we're booking our patches and let's get our passage to Bravos. Oh, let's go to Bravos." I'm kind of thinking that once Sunfire like comes back, they're not going to get a Bravos. Like it's never going to happen.
That's exactly what I think too. Once Sunfire is back, then Aegon is not going to want to go to Bravos.
Yeah. I also wanted to talk about Helaena.
Yes, for sure.
Because I don't think this child is going to be born. I think that she's going to die before that happens.
Well, we talked last week about how is she going to end up dying, how is she going to still commit suicide, and now I'm seeing a clearer path to that with this plot being introduced.
Yeah, well, I definitely thought, this is going to be tied into how she dies, but I'm still not sure how. If I don't know, I mean, they could go the suicide route, but I think that would be much harder. Like,
I've also heard that like Rhaenyra could like force her to drink moon tea.
Yes.
With the baby. So if that happened, she could legitimately be depressed enough to kill herself, which is what
Yes.
the explanation was in the book, is that she was so depressed that 2 of her kids died, because then Maegor does die. So I mean, he may as well not have been. That's what the George R. R. Martin thing is just really annoying to me, because why is he so important? He just dies. He's not important. He just dies. Like, you don't even need him to be there. So this kid, he's just gonna die before he's born. I think.
Yeah. No, I think I don't know. They could go the moon tea route, but I kind of doubt they will. It is interesting in this episode that Rhaenyra like re-emphasizes to Alicent, it's like, I wouldn't have killed Darrin. I wouldn't have killed him. And so that's interesting. So it's just saying that, no, I'm not going to kill them. I don't know. I almost feel like someone could kill a pregnant Helaena on Rhaenyra's behalf.
Yeah. I think
rather than her committing suicide.
I think she's going to commit suicide now. I wasn't convinced last week, but now I think that I was more on the like, oh, we struggle and she accidentally falls out the window thing. But I think now Rhaenyra's going to abort the baby. She's going to commit suicide. That's what I'm going with.
I'm not ruling it out, but I still feel like Helena's a totally different character. Like in the book, she was like super depressed and it wouldn't.
She might become that if she loses another kid.
Maybe, I don't know. I just feel like they've made her a different character in the show.
Yeah, I mean, but she has been shown to like really care for her children, and it did affect her that her first son died. So,
yeah, but not so much where she was like super depressed like she was.
Yeah, but she might be now.
So. Maybe, I don't know. I'm open to them. I know it's going to be tied into her death somehow.
Yeah, it will be tied into her death for sure.
Yeah,
this is the road for Helaena. This is paving the road for her death. Is this child?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think it will happen this season?
I think it will. I mean, I could see them pushing it back to next season, but I think that it'll probably going to happen this season.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It feels like it's Chekhov's pregnancy. I feel like you gotta pay it off by the end of the season. But I could be wrong. They could delay it to next year, or next season, 2 years.
Like I can't remember in the book she does kill herself before all the dragon pit stuff happens, right?
Yes, she does.
Yeah. Okay. So what about Hugh? I'm thinking with Ormund where he was like, oh, we're gonna readjust their tactics. I'm kind of thinking he's eventually gonna lead to him getting Ulf and Hugh and on his side. That's gonna be his tactic.
Yeah. Does he know about Ulf and Hugh yet? Like, would he be able to think of that now?
I mean, he's aware of who they are, but he doesn't. I don't. As far as I know, he doesn't know anything about them specifically.
Yeah. Oh, so you think when he said we gotta change tactics, he didn't have anything specific in mind yet?
Yeah.
I don't think he would come up with that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on how aware Kat becomes of her brother being killed by them, or if she just suspects it. Because if she's able to communicate that to Hugh, then I don't think Hugh is going to want to join them. But we could still be in a 24 situation.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm still thinking it could be a 24 situation.
We could. I'm thinking after this episode it's going to be a 24. But I think for Ulf though, I think he is going to offer him.
It's possible that Ulf is the one who initiates it. He's like, look, Rhaenyra is treating me like shit. If you want to give me lots of money, and maybe I'll have a dragon for you.
I think Ormund is really good. He would be really good at playing Ulf. Like he would obviously have no intention of ever giving Ulf anything because he's like, I mean, not only racist against Targaryens, I'm sure he's also classist too. Like, I think there's no way he would ever follow through with it, but he would be very good at pretending that he is. So he could very easily manipulate Ulf.
And this is like season 4 territory, but I also feel like they have to do something very different with how Hugh, Ulf, and Ormund and Darrin, how they all die.
Yeah,
because there was a bunch of extra lords, and they're all fighting amongst themselves, and I don't see them doing that.
Yeah.
And Hugh's not going to be like proclaim himself king and all that.
Yeah, he's just not the same. It's a totally different character.
Yeah,
totally different character than he is in the books. So they're gonna have to alter that. But honestly, I mean, to me, it's just I don't really care like how it happens. Like it makes it. I was thinking about like Lost. Like no matter what I do, you're gonna die, Charlie. Hawkins' whole explanation about it's been a while, so I don't remember the exact quotes anymore. I used to quote her voice,
like history course correcting.
Yeah, history could no matter what you do, things are going to still happen the same way. So as long as the show does that with the book material, if the same people all end up dead, I don't care how it gets there. Like, I don't care that they change how they die. And at this point, they're definitely changing how Gawain dies. He's going to die with Criston Cole in the battle.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that can't come soon enough. I don't want to say this in front of Darrin that I can't wait for them to kill off Criston Cole.
I feel like they might do something different with Criston Cole as well, because his whole gorilla. I know he's gonna die. It's still gonna happen.
He's gonna die differently. Gawain's gonna die differently. He would already be dead at this point. I think.
The whole guerrilla tactics. The whole guerrilla tactics thing is different than. And I do wonder if Darrin is right that they're just gonna leave Harranhal and they're never even gonna see Aemon.
The way. Yeah, I think so. I think that might happen, yeah.
And that would be a big change as well.
Yeah. I think Criston Cole's going to die out there when he's doing his guerrilla tactics. And so is Gawain. But I don't care that they change, as long as they still hit the major beats. If the characters who die still die, I don't care how, except for Rhaenyra has to die the same way because Joffrey already said it.
Yes. And that's too important of a detail to change.
Yeah. So they as long as all the people who are supposed to die, I don't care how it happens. I'm not like going to nitpick.
Yeah. But so I feel like the Rhaenyra thing, and some people were saying like the way she cut her hair, that the show's trying to make her look more like Nettles. But I feel like that is like the whole Daemon lying, that this is setting up for the thing that drives a wedge between.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Daemon and Rhaenyra.
Yeah. I can see that very clearly now in this episode, which I always thought it was going to have to do with Rhaenyra. I just didn't know specifically how they were going to do it, but now we see. Yeah,
and I do think that like the first battle of Tumbleton needs to happen first, right? Like Ulf and Hugh betray, and then that's when she starts to become all paranoid.
Yeah. And I just still don't know how paranoid she's going to be. Especially now with Alyn there. Is she going to turn against Alyn? I just kind of have a hard time seeing that. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. They could do something totally different with the Alyn and Adam thing. But I feel like her not legitimizing them is going to play into it somehow.
Yeah, but again, I said this last week. It's history. It's part of it's one of those major beats in history that he is Valyrian. He has
to. But as you said last week, though, it doesn't necessarily need to be her.
It doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be. It could be Craig the Stark on behalf of Aegon III, who makes that call. But I mean, it does change because there is, and I do think they're going to probably cut out. I've said this before, the whole thing where Aegon is in Dragonstone for like 6 months because Adam Valerian is running around with the fleet, and they're worried about him, and like they have to find him. He can't, because Sunfire can't fly, so he can't get back to King's Landing without getting around the Valerian fleet, who is headed by Adam Valerian. So I think they are cutting that part out. So they're in the book, he has to be Valerian at that point, but they could probably change it where he could not become Valerian until the end.
Or they could be like Rhaenyra changes her mind and legitimizes him after seeing how useful he is.
I think she would have to do that before the Ulf and Hugh betrayal. Because for it to work. I don't know if she's going to still quite get to that same level of paranoia, but I think it does make more sense that she does that first. But if she does it at all.
Well, they're definitely setting her up to be paranoid, though. Like, I just don't know. And also, I don't know what they're doing with, like, the Septons. Like, it feels like they're focusing on that more.
I feel like that's going to tie into the Shepherd.
Yeah.
Like, I could even see, like, the Septon. We called him Eustace, but I saw another video who called him by a different name. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But then I saw another video who called him Eustace. So I don't know. So whoever that Septon is, Eustace or whoever, like, if maybe she tries to kill him and he ends up becoming the Shepherd, or maybe someone he is killed and someone else, but I don't know. I could see them tying the Shepherd storyline into this somehow into this storyline, but I don't know.
And I want to see Joffrey. Like, is he in King's Landing or not? What's the deal?
He's on his way.
Yeah. And they still gotta resolve the whole, young Aegon Viserys thing.
Yeah, young Aegon has to be there when Rhaenyra gets eaten. Be there. So yeah, they and I think Future Boy mentioned that in the chat there that we missed the 2 blonde toddlers getting kidnapped at Battle of the Gullet. Because that didn't happen. They're trying to figure out something. They're going to do something else with them, and I don't know. Pentos now. I mean, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with them. Are we going to find out later that on their way to Pentos something happened, and then Aegon doesn't have a dragon, so someone will rescue him and bring him back or something? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
He has doesn't he have a dragon, but it's like tiny.
Yeah, I mean, not a dragon he can ride, and he's ride.
And that's what I was thinking from like a couple of years ago. It's like they can't do it the same way it happened in the book because this dragon is too tiny. You have to have some other way.
Yeah,
but so if for those watching, I think we mentioned this in other videos that we read an article with like Ryan Condal or someone saying that that they are going to address it, but it's going to happen differently. It didn't feel like the way they couldn't be at the Battle of the Gullet because they're too young and it would have been too much. But they said they are going to get there, but from a different way. So I'm still curious to see what that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, the best I can think of is just like somebody's just going to rescue Aegon. Like it's not going to be during the battle, but some other pirates will just attack them or whatever, just not having to do with the Battle of Gullet because there's still pirates out there. So they have to be in the Battle of Gullet, and like then some dude will rescue them. What if it's Tyland? Which would be crazy. I don't know why he would do that. He wouldn't do that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Future Boy OG says it's like a toddler riding a chicken. So wouldn't work in the show.
All right. Was there any other thing you wanted to talk about before we head out?
No, I think that's. I think we covered it.
All right. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and end this discussion here. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out my channel as we be here every week talking House of the Dragon. And I do Star Trek and other shit. And Alyssa, not much going on other than this at the moment.
Yeah. Yep. I'll see you here next week.
All right. Cool. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And see you next time.